Are all of the members of Panel B but one. May we have the roll call?
Dr. Kraus?
Present.
Dr. Bolat?
Present.
Dr. Nanadev?
Here.
Ms. Hines? Here. Ms. Sutton-Wills? Here. We have a quorum.
And I'd like to introduce our administrative law judge, Howard Cohen.
Good morning.
The first item on our agenda is the oral argument on non-adopted proposed decision in the case of Dr. Matthew Vucinic. Dr. Cohen, Mr. Cohen, would you like to introduce our ground rules?
Sure. We are going to, this is before we go on the record. Is the doctor here or his representative?
The doctor's here.
Why don't you step up to the, are you the doctor or the attorney?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Are you the doctor or the attorney?
The doctor.
Okay, good morning. We'll be going on the record in a moment. The board received a request, please be seated, for oral argument. Each side will get 15 minutes. We'll start with respondent, the physician, to make argument based strictly on evidence in the record. The board may, as you make your presentation, ask you to cite what evidence in the record you're referring to. You may not reference evidence that is not already in the record. You'll have 15 minutes each side, and then 5 minutes each side for rebuttal, and then the board will go into closed session. And I'm going to repeat that when we go on the record. I just wanted to let you know what's about to happen. All right? Do you have a card?
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go on the record. We are here for oral argument regarding the order of non-adoption of proposed decision issued by the Medical Board of California in the matter of the accusation against Matthew Joseph Vucinic, Jr., MD, physician and surgeon's certificate number G43289. Case number 12-2012-221354, bearing OAH number 2015-071315. Today is Thursday, May 5th, 2016. It's 10 a.m. We are sitting with a panel of the board and a quorum of that panel located at Los Angeles Airport Hilton, 5711 West Century Boulevard in Los Angeles. My name is Howard Cohen. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings. I've been assigned to sit with the board to hear oral argument today. Could I have the parties introduce themselves, please?
Deputy Attorney General Lynn Dombrowski on behalf of the complainant.
Thank you.
Matthew J. Vucinic.
Thank you. And I'll ask you to pull the microphone a little closer to you. As you may have noticed, we have a court reporter seated at this table. The court reporter is making the official transcript of this proceeding, and it's very important that everyone be heard so that we can get an accurate transcript. Okay. As I said before we went on the record, each side will have 15 minutes up to 15 minutes. You don't have to use every minute to make your presentation regarding the board's decision to non-adopt the proposed decision in the case below. You can only refer, if you are referring to any evidence in your argument, to evidence that has already been introduced and admitted on the record. This is not an evidentiary hearing. This is an oral argument based on existing evidence. And if the board asks you questions, they may ask you to cite to where in the record the evidence you're referring to appears. So please be prepared to do so. All right, 15 minutes for each side to make a presentation, and then 5 minutes each side for rebuttal. And Doctor, you will go first. You may begin.
All right, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak before you. I had planned to speak extemporaneously, but realized last night I was so nervous that I wrote notes, so I'm probably going to be reading most of the time so I don't forget anything.
Thank you. And then let me caution you, whenever anyone reads anything, they speed up. So try to slow down so everyone can catch what you're saying. And I'm going to ask you one more time to pull the microphone even closer. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
I am not an alcoholic. I have abused alcohol, as evidenced by my DUI arrests. I apparently was unclear in my December 2015 hearing before the medical board, which consisted of my direct responses to specific questions asked by my attorney and Ms. Dombrowski. It was never my intention to deny that a problem has existed. To me, it's very simple. I know I can't drink before driving, so I stopped doing so immediately after the 2011 arrest. When it was recommended and then required that I stop drinking at any time, I did, without any problem. I have no plan to resume drinking at any point in the future. When I was asked at the hearing, I said I'd like to imagine sharing a toast at my son's 20th wedding anniversary. He's not even married yet, but certainly did not mean to imply that I intended to resume drinking. As noted in the written argument for today's hearing, all the substance abuse experts have agreed that I was safe to continue practicing medicine. The concern, however, had been that I might become impaired in the future. To that end, I have taken significant measures towards my rehabilitation. I have been evaluated and monitored by addiction specialists Dr. Greenberg and Sucher, my employer, California Emergency Physician, my hospital Physician Wellness Committee, and my medical site director. I have been totally abstinent since September 2012 and have had 3 years of uniformly negative testing. I successfully completed the Alta Bates Intensive Outpatient Program at the Merritt Peralta Institute, and prior to that underwent over 6 months of individual psychotherapy. In summary, I have taken my problem seriously and have worked hard at rehabilitation. As far as I can determine, the issue before us today is what further measures and for what duration are appropriate to guarantee my continued rehabilitation and the public safety. I submit that it is reasonable to take into consideration the work I've already done rather than to impose conditions and restrictions as if I was starting at the beginning back in
from a urinalysis, and that 1 year was he was tested by hair samples on a quarterly basis. So that when you say 3 years of testing, it wasn't an extensive, as intense of a testing program as is outlined in the uniform standards that the board has adopted. And Dr. Vucinic, in his presentation today and in the written argument that was presented to the board, also indicated that he, is not an alcoholic, and they argue that he does not have an alcohol abuse disorder. And I just want to remind this panel, although I'm sure you're very well aware, that the board does not need to find that he has an alcohol use disorder in order to discipline him. for the 2 convictions that were related to driving while under the influence of alcohol. So the section, Business and Professions Code, Section 2239, Subdivision A, does not require a finding that he is an alcoholic, also does not require a finding that he is impaired to practice medicine. It only it allows discipline if he has been convicted for more than 1 misdemeanor related to using alcohol. And so I would remind the panel of that fact. As far as Dr. Vucinic has also asked, both in his written argument to the board on this non-adoption issue and today, has asked to have certain modifications made to the probation terms to accommodate his practice. It seems reasonable from my perspective to allow him to continue to practice, since even the evaluator for the board, Dr. Sokolov, found him safe to practice medicine and was not impaired to that extent where he had to be prohibited at any point during these proceedings. The one issue about the worksite monitor, I would ask the board to look at that. I do not think that it's reasonable to allow a worksite monitor to be someone who's not physically present for meetings with the respondent. So I would caution the board in considering that request in questioning whether to modify that request. Although Dr. Vucinic today hasn't made the argument, perhaps because it's a legal argument, I just also want to express a certain objection to some of the argument that was presented in the respondent's written argument, and that went to the issue about the statute of limitations questions. And I would just represent to the panel that the issue of the statute of limitations argument was raised at the administrative hearing. Both sides briefed the matter, and Administrative Law Judge Benjamin considered all of that argument and the legal citations in rendering his decision, which was cited in paragraph 5 of the decision, that the statute of limitations did not preclude the board from proceeding on the 2 convictions against him. So all in all, the evidence, as I presented in the written argument on non-adoption, certainly, and as clearly from anyone reading the decision by Administrative Law Judge Benjamin, the proposed decision, the evidence supports the findings that were made there, and he was very thorough in assessing the testimony and the evidentiary, the documentary evidence that was admitted at that hearing. And cause for discipline was established, has been established, and a probation under the board's uniform standards and guidelines is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Doctor, 5 minutes for rebuttal, if you wish.
I have no objection to the addition of the specific requirement of abstinence. Actually, I don't know if this is the proper protocol or the venue for it, but I would really invite questions as far as my requested modifications. I guess the first one being that of the worksite monitoring, which Ms. Dombrowski raised. I believe, well, I would think you have all reviewed the written argument, so I didn't want to repeat any of that. But the situation really is that there is nobody that is physically there at the emergency room every week with whom I would be able to have a face-to-face meeting. I suppose I could. Seton Coastside is a satellite hospital with its own independent emergency room of the larger Seton Medical Center, half an hour north in Daly City, and there are many more ER physicians who work there. I never see them other than once or twice a year at most at continuing medical education meetings. But I do often confer with them on the phone when I'm transferring patients to that place, but it still is, they're not physically present. If the board thinks that appropriate, I'm sure I could work out a situation where I would go up there to meet with somebody, but once again, it would most likely be not the same person every month because of the way schedules are. Regarding the drug testing that I've had, after the first 2 years of the random urine testing, Dr. Sucher, who was the substance abuse monitor, had decided that there was no reason for continued testing, and I requested that this be continued to document my continued abstinence, and he agreed to then do the quarterly hair testing with the rationale that should the test is sensitive enough to show if I had indulged on a binge, it would show up. And he said that the only thing on the basis of my record, if there were to be any kind of relapse, it would be in a binge term. And so for that reason, he thought that testing was more than adequate. I certainly would have had asked for continued of the regular, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Doctor. Ms. Dombrowski?
I have nothing further to add.
All right, then I'll ask any members of the panel whether you have any questions for the respondent. Go ahead. And say your name first, please.
Howard Kraus. I would like to inquire of the Deputy Attorney General if she has any comments regarding Dr. Vuksinich's request that any testing be done at the end of a shift rather than on the day of the request, which would interfere with his work schedule.
Dr. Kraus, I don't have any particular comment to that. I think you, as a physician, probably has more knowledge than I do about the reasonableness of that request, but I can see that would be acceptable to, I think, I don't have any objections or any evidence that would say that it's not something that's reasonable.
Thank you.
Yes, state your name, and do you have a question for the Deputy
Doctor,
Attorney
yes.
General? For the
No,
doctor?
Yes.
Okay, then, Doctor, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and has been?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. You can go ahead, state your name.
Dev Gandadev, board member.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Vucinich, what really bothered me here, you're an ER doc.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
a trauma surgeon. You see more injuries from drunk driving than any other a doctor can see. So having 2 arrests was worrisome. Then you coming up and basically saying that, well, I'm not alcoholic, that was a second worrisome thing. If you have twice, there is a reason. So abstain, I'm glad I heard that from you, that you are okay with abstain from alcohol or substances. That is extremely important, and that's why I was going to, I'm glad you came up with. I do understand your worksite monitoring issues, but tell me a little about why do you think that you don't have a really serious alcohol problem when you got stopped twice?
I think by definition, the fact that I was arrested twice means that there was a serious problem. The first instance was on my 50th birthday when I was pulled over for a burnt-out headlight, and I had no idea whatsoever that I had been consuming to the point where I would have a BA of .06. And as a result of the surprise of that, it didn't at that point sink in that, oh, this could be, something deeper. I looked at it as an extremely unusual kind of occurrence that since I wasn't a regular drinker or even a binge drinker when I did drink, that a wet reckless was something that I should consider my alcohol consumption, but it really didn't ring any bell. And then on the second arrest, it was a situation of I would not have got behind the wheel if I had any suspicion that things were amiss. And as a, in fact, I'm a mandolin player and had just finished a concert in downtown San Francisco where my elderly cousins came to visit. And after the performance, we went to a local bar, and I consumed 2 martinis, which is, I'm not a bar drinker. I hadn't seen my cousins in almost a year. And again, as I walked to my car to go to the second performance, I actually did not feel impaired and didn't even question to myself that I could have been impaired. And when I got close to my destination, as a matter of fact, and realized that I had missed a turn, I pulled into a 7-Eleven where there was a police car in the parking lot to ask for directions. And seeing the police car didn't give me any hesitation because I wasn't aware that I was intoxicated. So the result of that arrest was loud and clear. Wow, you can't tell if you're intoxicated. So that's why I went through all these steps. And to me, since alcohol wasn't something that was necessary, it was easy for me to just say, okay, I can't do it, I stop. And that's why I don't think that it's a continued or an ongoing issue. In the same kind of way, I suppose that if I was told that I had high blood pressure and had to abstain from salt or be on a medication, that would be okay. That's the only logical thing to do, and I'll do it. And having said that, it really was no effort at all to cease completely, and I don't see that after almost 4 years of abstinence, it would appear to come and be a problem again. Did that answer your question?
Somewhat, thank you.
Any further questions from any members of the panel? You do? Okay. State your name and ask your question.
Brenda Sutton Wells. Doctor, you said that it was not possible to have supervisors per se present, but that you don't go unsupervised. What did you mean by that? Who actually is present?
The only people present are one ER nurse and then the physician who I have relieved when I come on to work, and then the next physician who relieves me when my shift is over. However, over the course of the shift, there are frequent phone calls to other physicians at receiving hospitals. We don't have any inpatient facilities, so anything requiring hospitalization needs to be transferred. And inherent in a transfer, you need to discuss the case with the receiving physician to get acceptance, sometimes several consultants as well. So it's supervision. That's what I meant by supervision. I have ample contact with a number of physicians during every shift, but none of them are there. This is all over the phone.
Any further questions from the panel? No? All right. Well, then that will conclude the hearing on oral argument on this matter. With that, the record is closed, the matter is submitted, and we'll go off the record. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I know you've all been avidly waiting for us. We had a little work this morning in Panel A, so I apologize for the delay. This is a formal meeting of the Licensing Committee of the Medical Board of California. I'd like us all to turn off our cell phones to silent to make sure they are off the table, and make sure they're off the table so we can avoid feedback noise. You may notice committee members accessing their laptops during the meeting. They are using the laptops solely to access the committee meeting materials that are in electronic format. We have a designated time on the agenda for public comment and ask for public comment on each agenda item. I ask that you be respectful of the need to conduct the committee's business. Should anyone disrupt the meeting, I will ask the person to conduct himself or herself in such a manner that permits the committee to transact its business. This meeting will be available via teleconference. Individuals listening to the meeting will have an opportunity to provide public comment and will be assisted by a moderator who will be facilitating the teleconferencing process. For those members of the public participating via teleconference, please wait until the moderator has introduced you before you make your comments. To request to make a comment during the public comment period, press *1. You will hear a tone indicating you are in the queue for comment. If you change your mind and do not want to make a comment, press the # sign. Assistance is available throughout the teleconference meeting. To request a specialist, press *0. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes per agenda item. However, during agenda item 2, public comments on items not on the agenda, the committee has limited the public comment period for individuals in the teleconference to 20 minutes. In addition, public comment from individuals here at the meeting will also be limited to 20 minutes. Therefore, after 20 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. During public comment on any other agenda item, 10 minutes will be allowed for comments from individuals on the teleconference line and those in the audience. After 10 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. Business service staff will be assisting me with receiving the public comments via teleconference during this meeting. The committee welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the committee's intent to ask for public comment prior to the committee taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. I would like to remind all speakers to complete a presenter slip so I can call you by name at the appropriate time, and that the record of this meeting can be full and complete. However, this is voluntary. Please give the speaker's slips to Ms. Toof. Ms. Toof, can you identify yourself? I will do my best to call upon everyone who has supplied a slip for the agenda item and recognize those who wish to make a last-minute comment. But we will ask you to fill out a speaker slip after your comments, so we have it for the record. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. We plan to end today at, parentheses, later than 2 p.m. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask that Mr. Warden please call the roll.
I'll do it, no problem.
Let Ms. Toof do this.
Dr. Gonadev?
Here.
Dr. Hawkins?
Here.
Ms. Pines? Here. Ms. Wright? Dr. Bishop?
Here.
Thank you.
I believe that's a quorum. I would like to remind the members that we will be taking a roll call vote on all action items. Moving to Agenda 2, Item 2, public comments on items not on the agenda. Are there any speaker slips? Seeing no speaker slips, are there any comments on the phone?
Nancy, any comments on the phone?
No comments at this time.
We are being very efficient. Excellent. Let's now move to item number 3, approval of minutes from the July 30, 2015 Licensing Committee meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the July 2015 meetings from the members? Any public comment from those in the audience? Okay. Any comments from the phone?
Nancy?
No, sir.
All right. May I have a motion to approve these as submitted?
So moved.
Second? Second. All right. Mr. Warden, please perform the roll call vote.
Dr. Gonadev?
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Pines? Yes. Dr. Bishop?
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to agenda item 4, overview and discussion of minimum requirements for board-recognized accredited postgraduate training by Mr. Warden.
Okay. So today we have a PowerPoint regarding the overview of the minimum requirements and what we are considering about increasing. So the two types of accreditation that we approve are the ACGME in the U.S. only and the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons in Canada only. Both of those programs have international programs we do not recognize. The current minimum requirements for licensure for U.S. and Canadian graduates is 12 continuous months in the same ACGME or RCPSC program. And for international medical graduates, it's 24 months with the last 12 months in the same program. Current, let's see. I lost my spot. U.S. and Canadian graduates must be licensed by the end of 24 months, even if the PG training was not done in California, and IMGs must be licensed within 30 months even if their postgraduate training was not done in California. The number of years to complete an ACGME program, the minimum is 3 years, for example, internal medicine, general, pediatrics, family medicine are some of those, 4 years for OBGYN and psychiatry, 5 years for general surgery, and 7 years for neurosurgery, which is one of the longest. Question is 1 or 2 years of accredited PG training enough for a physician to obtain a license and practice safely without any supervision? Medical education and practice of medicine is very different today than it was in 1980 and 1985 when the current standards were implemented. This page identifies the required number of years for postgraduate training by the number of states' minimum requirements. FSMB recommends a minimum of 3 years, and this is consistent with the FSMB Interstate Compact requirements. How many years should the board consider for minimum requirements today to provide best consumer protection? 2 years for both U.S. and Canadian and IMG graduates, or 3 years for both U.S. Canadian and IMG graduates? This slide identifies some of the pros and cons for increasing the minimum requirements to 2 years for both. This slide identifies some of the pros for increasing the minimum requirements to 3 years for U.S. and Canadian NIMGs. And this slide identifies the cons that we have identified. Here are some additional considerations for the board to consider. Will the board need to have the same medical school recognition process if the PG training requirements are increased, especially if the PG training requirements are increased to a minimum of 3 years? The current medical school recognition process was implemented in 2003. This was prior to the passage of Business Impression Code 2135.7, which was passed in 2014, and now allows individuals who attended or graduated from an unrecognized medical school or disapproved medical school to apply for licensure. For the unrecognized medical schools, it's if they are ABMS certified and have held a license in another state or states for 10 years. And for a international medical school, it will be for 12 years. That if they went to a disapproved school, sorry. International medical schools are currently recognized pursuant to Business Impression Code 2089 and 2089.5, and California Code of Regulations 1314.1 A1 or A2. The alternatives to board medical school recognition process would include ECFMG and the World Federation of Medical Educations and the Foundation for Advanced International Medical Education Research, is that they are scheduled to have a recognized accreditation agencies in place by 2023. ECFMG is already in the pilot phase with a few agencies, or to accept the new list of medical schools listed in the World Directory of Medical Schools, especially if the 3 years of accredited postgraduate training is required for licensure in California. Identified issues: type of license exemption. Should California be concerned about somebody entering California from an ACG program from another state or from the RCS PCS programs? How will the board identify these individuals prior to residency training entering the program? Training license. What type of training license would we need? What would be required? When to apply? When to receive? How much will it cost? How long will it be valid for? Does training license need to be renewed? Training license privileges to consider: writing prescriptions without cosigner, qualifying for a DEA permit, sign birth and death certificates, and what kind of moonlight limitations would be placed. Assuming the board establishes training license, when will a resident apply for a full and unrestricted license? 90 days prior to completing the ACGME program. Will that be enough time for the board to process a license? After completing the ACGME program, after, how long after? And then the other thing is how long will board staff need to, depending on how the training license requirements are implemented. And then how much time would the current ACGME programs need to implement the proposed changes? How much time would the board need to obtain the necessary amendments to statutes and regulations? And are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Are there any comments from members of the board? Dr. Gonda.
Mr. Warden, I'm glad you put this thing together. It's we've been talking about this for a while. Some resident gets dismissed after 1 year of training. If you're a U.S. graduate, you're eligible for license. And as a person who is a teaching institution for 35 years, I know how much what we let them go through before they get dismissed. It's not easy to dismiss a resident. There are some serious issues, but right now they're qualified to get California license, and if you're an IMG after 2 years, it's same. So you did point out a lot of what we need to resolve. And also, I know that for when the scope of practice is being hit from all the sites where physicians go through the most training, and we're going to make it more difficult for them to get a license compared to a lot of allied health professionals. I understand that, but I think the public safety-wise, in my mind, making it 3 years and resolving what all the issues remaining behind, that is, when do you give them a training license, where can they work with the training license, what can they do in a program, with the training license, I think they can be resolved. But for the best public safety, I think requiring 3 years is a better option rather than current 1 or 2 years.
Thank you. Any other comments from members of the panel, the board?
I tend to support that as well.
Right. The chair would also tend to support that idea as well. Are there any comments from those in the audience? As always, Ms. Kirchmeier, your comments are very welcome.
And I don't know, I might be a beaten Kurt to this, but I just kind of want to let you know where we are on this issue. So we've had one interested parties meeting on this issue, and when the individuals, when we actually held that, I think we ended up having one student there. And we had, I think, 2 interested parties, one person from 2 different interested parties. So we didn't have a lot of participation. We did open it up to the telephone as well. And I think we may have only had 1 individual on the telephone. Now, we did find out that some of the postgraduate training programs, that was a really bad day for them, the day that we had chosen. So we kind of went back, and we were going to have another interested parties in late last year, actually, is what we were looking at. And in talking to some of the, Mr. Warden and I actually have a quarterly meeting with the GME directors. And so in talking to them, we've kind of pushed this out there. That's all of our identified issues. A lot of them are ones that they have come from actually meeting with that group. And so what we've actually decided is that we're going to actually do a slide presentation very similar to the one that Mr. Warden presented today, that we're going to give to them. And I'm going to actually have Kurt talk a little bit more about what those meetings will look like and who all that they will be providing that information to. But I just want to let you know that we're not losing any momentum on it. We're actually going to take it to the individuals who know the programs best and know the unintended consequences that from staff's perspective we might not be able to see. And so we've tried to identify as many as we can, but we think that the other individuals, the ones that are actually, feet on the ground, those are going to be the individuals that can provide the best information for us. And so that's the next group that we're going to go to. So I'll have Kurt explain that, but then just to let you know, then what we'd like to do is actually, and we'll be talking about this in the full board, then I'd like to actually put that into the sunset review as an issue for the medical board. And then hopefully we can get some support for legislation, be it in our sunset review. Obviously, though, looking to it to the future, because we do have to have some time to implement it both for the medical board and for these programs. So Kurt, can you talk about the GME dates?
So the meeting that Kim and I go to quarterly is actually with the UC regents and their associate deans of the graduate medical education, and that's where some of these ideas came up. And one of them suggested a PowerPoint that they could present at their designated institutional meetings with the program directors, and that they would be happy to sort of look at that for us once it was developed. Well, I just sort of finished developing that with myself, Ms. Kirkmeyer, and Ms. Webb, and I think Ms. Dobbs looked at it too. And that's going to go out to a couple of them to test a little bit to get their feedback on, and then once that's done, we'll be handing it out to, sending it out to the UCs at first, and then to they're going to help us distribute it to some of the other places. And I have talked with Dr. Jung from Loma Linda, and he's in support of some of our concepts from his school, and and then I think from what I've heard, I have not talked with anybody from Stanford or USC yet, but from general information, it seems to be that most program directors think 1 year is not enough, and for today's medicine. So.
Excellent. It sounds like we're on the right track. It sounds like we have some groundswell of support too as well. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Are there any other comments from the audience today? Any comments from those on the phone?
Not at this time.
Very good. Well, then we'll move on to number 5, overview and discussion of special faculty permits. We're working Mr. Warden hard today.
Yes, too hard. So today is just a sort of a quick overview, and to start out with, the actual language of each of the business professions codes are in the back of the PowerPoint with the actual language of each code section from slides 21 through 27. A special faculty permit is a license exemption for a physician surgeon who does not meet current licensing requirements in California, who is eminent or clearly outstanding in their specialty, and has been recruited by a California medical school as a full tenured faculty member or a full professor or an assistant professor, and the medical school has a great need to fill the faculty position. The special faculty permit only allows the permit holder to practice medicine at the medical school or a formally affiliated hospital of the medical school. This is a current list of the allopathic medical schools currently in California, which is 10, and there are, in addition to these 10 schools, there's another school that's in the application process, and Kaiser recently announced a plan to build a school in Southern California. So the medical school that's in the application process is actually so far called California University of Sciences and Medicine, College of Medicine in Colton. I'm pretty close to that. Dr. Gonadab is looking at me. So this is the Business and Professions Code, a little bit of history. Section 2168 was added to statute in 1997, and is basically, at that time, it was limited to academically eminent, and it's spelled out exactly what that was, which was basically the full professor's, a full-time professor tenured appointment. Possessed a current valid license in another state, country, or jurisdiction. The dean of the medical school sponsored and submitted a statement to the board describing the applicant's qualifications, justifying the dean's determination that the applicant is academically eminent. The dean must have also provided with a list of every affiliated institution which the applicant would be providing instruction or clinical activities. The board, in its discretion, may require the applicant to take for an SFP to take an oral exam, and this was requirements back in 1997, not current requirements. The following amendments to 2168 became effective in January 2007, which included the bill to make amendments not to include any requirement for a oral exam, and to add that he or she is clearly outstanding in a specific field of medicine into the previous requirements. It also established a special faculty permit review committee, and the committee members consist of a physician board member on the committee, and a public member from the board on the committee, and a representative from each of the medical schools. In 2168.2 also took effect on January 1st, 1997, and was amended in 1999, and eliminating the board may in its discretion. That one was the, whoa, now I can't see.
Mr. Warden can't see his presentation.
That one actually is the time when it eliminated the
Thank you.
oral examination requirement, and then made some other technical amendments. 2168.3 was added to statute and is similar to the requirements for a full and unrestricted physician and surgeon license. Twenty-one 68.4 is regarding the expiration renewal, which is very basically similar to a regular physician and surgeon's license with the exception, and it was amended in 1999 to add CME requirements. And 2168.5 was a report that was done to the legislature requirement in 2002 and was added in statute in 1997 and was amended in 2007 with a report to the legislature in 2011 and was repealed in 2013. And Section 2169 established the CME requirements, which is very similar to the CME requirements that was already established in 2168.4, but it made it basically the same, exactly the same as the current physician and surgeons. To date, the first special faculty permit was issued on August 18th, 1999, and 30 permits have been issued to date. I already talked about that one. And also on that one, previous slide, once the committee has a meeting, at that meeting, the sponsoring school makes the presentation of their recommendation to the rest of the committee. The committee then votes on that without that committee member in the place, and at that time, if they approve whatever or don't recommend, whatever the committee's recommendation is, it will be presented at the full board meeting by the chair. The application process is the medical school identifies a need for a faculty member with specific specialties, conducts a search for a physician with the specified skills. The medical school identifies a physician who does not meet the minimum requirements. However, the dean of the medical school has determined the applicant meets either one of the following: is either academically eminent or clearly outstanding. The dean of the medical school and the applicant submit an application to the board, including the application fees, fingerprint cards, and all the other required documents. Once the board staff reviews the application and the application is complete, and this is generally with the exception of the visa and social security number and the license fee, then that applicant will be presented at the next scheduled special faculty permit meeting. Faculty permits meetings are scheduled quarterly. We do not have one every quarter. It only is if we have an applicant. At that time, it'll be at that committee meeting when the board makes the determination. Then after that meeting, then the committee chair will present that to the full board. If the full board approves the applicant, staff will issue the special faculty permit once the board receives the remaining fees and required documents, which would include the visa and social security number, if a visa is required. The renewal process for a special faculty permit is the same as a regular physician and surgeon license, with the exception that the dean of the sponsoring medical school must confirm the faculty permit holder still meets the minimum requirements. This is the copy of the statement of what the dean must sign and submit to the board. This slide shows how many special faculty permits have been issued as of April 2016. the number of permits in canceled status and renewed and current status. And to date, no faculty permits have been disciplined by the board. Slides 15 and 16 are the actual people with special faculty permits that the board has issued. And 17. The board sent out a questionnaire to the medical schools. I only sent this out to 9 of the medical schools because one of the medical schools has not participated in the special faculty permit because of how new it was, and so I did not send one to that school. However, we received responses from those schools regarding that. So the responses from the schools included for question number 1, I'll bring that back. For question number 1 is...
Visually challenged people like me, could you read the question?
Yes, I can read the question. Do you believe the special faculty permit program is still needed today? 7 of the medical schools responded yes. 1 medical school responded no out of the 9 schools we sent it to. For question number 2, does the special faculty permit program provide the medical school with faculty who are eminent or clearly outstanding in their fields of specialty and who clearly outstanding in their specialty field and who have expertise and skills in the medical school would not be able to attain from physicians who meet all the requirements for licensure in California? 7 of the schools replied yes, 1 school said no. For question number 3, is the special faculty permit program currently meeting the needs of your medical school? 5 of the medical schools responded yes, 3 of the medical schools responded no. Question number 4, if you have used the special faculty permit program, please explain the quality and quantity of the value delivered by the faculty that is presenting. 6 of the medical schools responded to the survey and 2 of the schools skipped it. Comments from the medical schools. So we do not know which schools replied to what answers because we did an anonymous survey. So we'll identify these by schools by numbers. So school number 1, we received no comments from. School number 2, if you answered yes to question number 3, and please explain why or why not. And the response from school number 2, it was those in it really are not eminent. They simply want to come here and weren't able to qualify for a license. And for school number 2, they responded to question number 4. I have not seen those in this position to be of any special value to the program, and it turns into a pathway for those who couldn't get a license. School number 3 provided a response to question number 4 and states, allows recruitment of highly qualified foreign-trained academic physicians to benefit the universities, the medical community, and general population. School number 4 responded to question number 3. With the expansion of the academic hospitals into integrated health systems, the 2168 holder should be able to practice within any of the hospitals with which the academic program has affiliated. That actually is possible if they have a formal affiliation agreement and they have submitted that to the board and the board approves that. Most of them have done that. So, on question number 4, for school number 4, they said outstanding clinical care has improved access to services within the academic health system. School number 5 responded to question number 4. The special faculty permit allows us to recruit world-renowned faculty members. This allows California medical schools to compete with medical schools in other states to attract and retain highly sought-after teachers and clinicians who benefit our patients and the patients of our learners. School number 6 replied to question number 4 also, and they said that it does allow the flexibility for recruiting top faculty. School number 7 responded to question 3. I believe the criteria should be very rigorous and not simply a means to hire someone not able to meet requirements for licensure. It should not be used for junior level faculty who could take the required examination if truly motivated to do so. This should not be a backdoor to licensure. School number 7 also responded to question 4. We have used the program on a very limited basis. We have turned down requests from our departments on several occasions. Our biggest concerns with the program is the fear that qualified applicants may be available, but foreign-trained physicians are preferred by some department heads because they will not leave and go into competition with the practice plan. I strongly believe the program should be limited to clearly eminent, world-renowned experts in the field, with the exception all academic records, and that a clear demonstration that the applicant with similar skills who is eligible for normal licensure is not available and a dire needs for their expertise. And school number 8 provided no comments. And that concludes that presentation.
Any comments from members of the board? Dr. Granado.
Mr. Warden, it's an excellent presentation. It looks like UC system uses them the most by looking at it. Loma Linda never used them, and USC and Stanford used it a little bit. Is that what my understanding is?
Actually, Loma Linda has one pending. They're waiting for their visa to come through that the board has approved. But yes, the UCs seem to use it more. Stanford has, I think, a couple, but mostly the UCs have been using it.
So I support the system, not because we're creating a medical school. I just want to take my conflict into that. But before that, the reason I think public safety why we're okay is because you have a tremendous amount of supervision at the academic centers compared to somebody who's in practice. So because people ask me, why should we allow medical schools to do this, but we can't allow others to do? My answer is there is a lot more hierarchy in medical school structures where they can look after, and I follow that somewhat closely. To my knowledge, there was one person at a school in the Northern California had some issues, and that was it. And and I saw that name as canceled permit. So do we ever get complaints about them from the faculty or from anyone else? I'm just curious because that one person was in the public news. That's the only reason I know. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known.
Well, as I said, we haven't taken any action on any of these individuals yet, so.
So Dr. Ganadev, we treat these just like an individual that's licensed. We get complaints on these individuals, and we'll go through the process if we need to take action against them. So we have gotten complaints against some of them. We've investigated them, and when we could, if we could, or if we rose to that level, we would take action.
Excellent. Any other members of the board? I do have one speaker slip from Marion Hollingsworth. The next one. Very good.
Dr. Bishop, if I could, I just wanted to
Please
let the members know, the reason we put this on the agenda is because this had been requested by a board member to talk about the special faculty permits and why, what it looks like, kind of the background on it and how the system is going. From the comments that we've received, I think it would be really important for us to take those back to the actual Special Faculty Permit Review Committee. As you heard, some of the concerns it sounded like from the schools were that, they were concerned about the individuals being eminent and renowned and everything. And so I think it'd be important for us, and if the committee kind of directs us to do that, is to take them back and actually show them to the Special Faculty Permit Review Committee and kind of let let them know kind of what's been said about the program. You heard, two opinions, one that it's really good, and I think they're helpful, and I can't agree more. I mean, I think it does put the right individuals here, but I think there's some concerns about some of the individuals maybe not meeting the criteria, and the persons that really look at that criteria are those special faculty permit committee members. And so I think it'll be good for them to hear that feedback, and then, and also we'll relay that to the board as well. But
I know the ones that have been presented to the board, full board, since I've been here, seem to be very well qualified. I'm not sure if there is, this is sour grapes, or if there have been some concerns with some of the earlier applicants, but I do think, I agree with you, and I would like to see staff further investigate this. Particularly, it's unfortunate we don't know who the schools are that wrote the negative comments. It'd be nice to know exactly what concerns they might have, but I think it's worth, because those were there, looking into those, and I applaud your hard work. One more, are there any comments from the phone regarding this agenda item?
Not at this time.
Very good. So then we will move on to our next agenda item, overview and discussion of special programs.
I just have one. Did you want us to bring that to the Special Faculty Permit Committee, the concerns that we had today? Or the
Yes,
okay.
absolutely. I apologize. Yes. I alluded to that, but did not specifically say that. I absolutely agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so in addition to the special faculty permits, there are some other special programs that are out there that are also license exemption. And those are also in the Business and Professions Code, and basically it's these codes that the most common ones that we have are these codes here. The Business and Professions Codes 2111, which is a license exemption for an international physician surgeon who is graduated from a medical school recognized by the board and is licensed in another country. And it allows the physician to participate in a California Medical School's non-ACGME accredited fellowship program to learn a new skill and to take that skill back to their registrant's home country, not company. The 2111 participant may only participate at the medical school at the sponsoring medical school. The registration is for 1 year and may be renewed no more than 2 times. However, most all of these are only 1 year, so I don't recall any of them being renewed recently for more than just the one year. So, Business and Profession Code 2112 is license exemption registration for an international trained physician who attended and graduated from a medical school recognized by the board, is licensed in another country. It allows the physician to participate in a board-approved California teaching hospital non-ACGME accredited fellowship to learn a new skill and take that skill back to the registrant's home country. Again, they may only practice at that specific hospital strictly for that fellowship, and once again, it can be renewed for 1 year and may be renewed up to 2 times. However, there's only 2 hospitals who have this program at this time, and each of them only do it for 1 year. The Business Profession Code 2113 is a faculty registration for an international physician and surgeon who attended and graduated from medical school recognized by the board, licensed in another country. Again, this one allows the physician to teach in the California Medical School, and the physician may only practice medicine at the medical school or formerly affiliated hospitals which are approved by the board. The registration is valid for 1 year at a time. It may be renewed 2 times with the board's approval. Prior to the end of the 3rd year, the sponsoring medical school and the applicant may request the faculty registration to be renewed for an additional year, and they must submit a licensure plan. The licensure plan must include the timeframes for taking and passing all the licensing examinations, including attaining an ECFMG certification status report and taking USMLE Step 1, Step 2 CK, 2CS, and Step 3. If the board approves the licensing plan, the board will renew the faculty permit for additional year. Prior to the end of the fourth year of the sponsoring medical school, and the applicant may request an extension and submit a new licensing plan that identifies what they have completed so far and what they still need to complete. This includes any of the examinations they have remaining and when they plan on taking those examinations. The maximum length of time that anybody may participate in this is 5 years. There is one thing to note: the sponsoring medical school and the applicant may request the board to waive any and all licensing examinations. Examination waivers requests are reviewed by the Application and Special Programs Committee in closed session. This, by coming in to the special faculty permit, not special faculty permit, this faculty registration allows the time spent in that to count for the required ACGME training program. So this eliminates the requirement for the ACGME training for them. We evaluate it based on how much time they're spending in clinical practice and teaching, and it needs to be equivalent to basically the same amount of time they would have spent for a minimum of 2 years in an ACGME program if they were in an IMG, as a regular IMG. So. And California Code of Regulations, Section 1327, is a clinical training program from international medical school students. A hospital may request the board to approve for approval to train international medical school students in specific subjects if the hospital meets the minimum requirements specified in Section 1327. The program is for California hospitals that do not have an ACGME accredited program in a specific subject area. The board's approval is for 1 year at a time and must be renewed yearly. We have 2 hospitals that participate in that, and they have been doing it for quite a long time. So, and that allows them to teach. One of them is Metropolitan State Hospital, and they provide psychiatry, 4 weeks of psychiatry at their hospital. There's also a place that we send applicants who are deficient in their psychiatry rotations from an international school. They are allowed, with our permission, to remediate that psychiatry training instead of going back to their medical school. They can do it here in California. And one of the requirements is they have to have a very close student-to-physician ratio, so as you can see here. So that they are very monitored very well. And I've been to both of those hospitals that provide this, and they do have a very well-established, well-run programs. Do you have any questions?
Dr. Nanja.
I don't know. I have a lot of questions there, Mr. Warden. So actually, I'm glad that you presented this. I was wondering how. So special faculty registration means that if they do 2 years as an IMG, they are eligible for license in California.
Well, I misspoke. Special faculty permit is
registration, I'm asking.
Just the registration, yes.
And once they get licensed, they can practice anywhere else?
Correct.
Okay.
So they get a basically the same license you have.
So it's similar to doing an ACGME program, even though it's not an ACGME program, they're doing for 2 years?
Correct. Almost all of them need at least 3 years to do it, because most of them do not have any exams when they come. And in order for them to take all their exams, they generally need to be here at least 3 years to success. Most of them are here maybe a little longer. There are some exceptions to that where they started taking USMLE exams prior to them beginning that, and so they may be able to get it done in in the 2.5, 3-year period versus maybe 4. So, and there's some of them who never take the exams. They just only complete the 5 years.
So are they, now you have an experience in them, I don't know how many people are there. Is this a back door if you can't get into ACGME program? Are we using them only for people who are well-trained, well-experienced, and then coming here and don't have to completely go through the entire residency program?
This is another thing where they can't just apply to the board for this. They have to apply to the dean of the medical school, and they're generally sponsored by a program director who has recruited and says this is the person they want for their faculty. The difference in this is they don't have to meet the clearly outstanding or academically eminent. So that's why they require, even though they are required, so for instance, the special faculty permit individuals do not have to take any exams if they want to continue practicing, and they can practice until they retire or the school cancels their registration, because the schools can cancel their registrations. A school can cancel any of these, like they can cancel the 2113 registration or the 2111 or 2112. They can cancel those at their own will, not just the board. The board, just as Ms. Kirkmeyer said before, these individuals are also subject to complaints and discipline processes as anybody else is, but the school actually controls, if they had something, they can cancel them themselves. So.
Any other questions from board members? Any questions from the audience? And anybody from the phone?
Not at this time.
Very good. Then we'll move along to item number 7, future agenda items. Are there any members of the board that would like to request any future agenda items? And is this, now you, Ms. Hollingsworth, was this your speaker slip, or did we skip you? I'm sorry? Next committee, okay, well, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Well, we're eagerly awaiting then. Thank you, very good. Any members, anybody from the phone?
Not at this time.
Very good. Well, if that's the case, I believe we've completed our agenda, and I'd like to call for adjournment. Thank you very much.
Afternoon. Welcome to the Public Outreach, Education, and Wellness Committee meeting today. I'm Dr. Ron Lewis. I'm the chair of the committee. I want to ask all of us on the tables here to turn off their cell phones or make them silent so we can avoid the feedback noise. You may notice board and committee members accessing their laptops during the meeting. They're using these laptops to access board information for the committee meeting in electronic format. This is an official business meeting of the Medical Board of California, and as such, disruptions of the board's business will not be tolerated. We have a designated time on the agenda for public comment, and I ask for public comment on each agenda item. I ask that you be respectful of the need to conduct the board's business, and should anyone disrupt the meeting, I will ask the person to conduct himself or herself in such a manner that permits the board to transact its business. This meeting will be available via teleconference, and individuals listening to the meeting by teleconference will have an opportunity to provide public comment and will be assisted by a moderator who will be facilitating the teleconferencing process. For those members of the public participating by the teleconference, you will please wait until the moderator has introduced you before you start your comments. To request to make a comment during the public comment period, press the *1 on your phone, and you will hear a tone indicating that you are in the queue for comment. If you change your mind and no longer wish to make a comment, go ahead and press the # sign. That'll cancel out your queue. Assistance is available through teleconferencing, and to have assistance, press the *0 key and someone will assist you. Now, each person will be limited to 3 minutes per agenda item. However, during agenda item number 2, which is called public comments not on the agenda, the board has limited the public comment period for individuals on the teleconference to 20 minutes. In addition, public comment from individuals here at the meeting will also be limited to a total of 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. During public comment on any other agenda item, 10 minutes will be allowed for comments from individuals on the teleconferencing line and also those in the audience. After 10 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. The business services staff will be assisting me with receiving the public comments via teleconference during this meeting. Excuse me. The board welcomes public comments on any agenda item, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on the agenda item and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. I would also like to request that all speakers complete a presenter slip, which is located in the back. And so I can call you by name at the appropriate time, and the record of this meeting can be full and complete. However, this is completely voluntary. Please give the speaker slips to Ms. Toof down there. And she will come by and collect those from you, or you can walk up and give those to her. I'll do my best to call upon everyone who has supplied a slip and recognize those who also wish to make a last-minute comment. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic of the agenda item being discussed and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Now we will call roll. Ms. Toof, are you calling roll?
Yes. Dr. Hawkins?
Here.
Dr. Kraus?
Present.
Dr. Levine? Ms. Pines? Here. Mr. Serrano-Sewell? Here. Dr. Lewis?
Present.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum, thank you. First item the second item on the agenda after roll call is public comments on items not on the agenda. So do I have any public comments on items not on the agenda? Okay. I'm getting a cough. Well, kind of.
Good afternoon, Geneviève Clavrolle.
Okay.
What can you do when a physician advertises himself as a specialist, but when you go to the Breeze and check his education or background or licensure, you find out that he just have a general, practicing license? What can we do about it? And
I think Ms. Kirschmeyer can help you address that, right, later, after the meeting?
And
You'll talk to, okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. That one, anybody else would like to comment on that agenda item? Do we have anybody on the teleconference line wishing to comment?
Not at this time.
Not at this time, thank you. Okay, so anybody else? Nope, so we'll move on to the next agenda item, is approval of minutes from the January 21st, 2016 Public Outreach, Education, and Wellness Committee meeting. Are there comments from any committee members on that agenda item on the minutes? Anybody on my right? On my left? No? Okay. Are there comments or questions from the public on this agenda item, which is number 3? No? Are there any comments on the telephone?
Not at this time.
Okay. So we'll go into roll call on the minutes. So
Dr.
Ms.
Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Pines? Mr. Serrano Sewell?
We need a motion to approve. Need a motion to approve. My fault. Second. Now we can,
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Aye.
Ms. Pines? Mr. Serrano Sewell? Dr. Lewis?
yes. The motion is approved and the minutes are approved, so. Okay. Next item is the update and discussion of the public outreach plan, which is me. Oh. I have to get up for this. Yeah, that'll be fine. I think I can see. Have what? Oh, for you to have it? Okay. Okay. Last time, for those of you who were here last time, we talked about prioritizing the activities we have for public outreach. And many of you heard updates to the website and also what we were doing as far as reaching out to the public. I'm kind of facing both people, so I hope I don't want to have my back to people, but it's just the best I can do, so I have to apologize. Okay, so next slide. First, before we even go much further, we have to develop a tutorial for our website to get people up to speed on how to use our website. So we're going to develop a tutorial to get the public to understand how to look up a physician's license on the website and what that information means. So that should be completed by the July 2016 board meeting. And we're working with the Department of Consumer Affairs to develop that tutorial. Now, you talked about developing PSA or public service announcements that can be provided to media and other interested parties. And staff is working to develop those public service announcements with various people that are going to talk about the board's website, what the board does. And that completion date is expected by September of 2016. But we first need to develop, of course, the board website tutorial before we can do many of these activities. So the information that's going to be included about the board and its website will appear on various types of media, various types of flyers. And one area that we thought would reach a large number of people would have this information on utility bills. We all get utility bills from the gas company, from water company, from electric company, but it's very difficult in these companies because they're kind of semi-public and they have regulations about what can be provided. But we are working with a nurse practitioner from PG&E who's developing sort of a health program at PG&E, and she's very interested in putting this information in their brochures, and hopefully we'll get these on the utility bills of PG&E. So it's a small start. Hopefully other utility companies will adopt this. Now, a large number of large number of people are located in city employees, county employees, and state employees. And those of you who work for the various entities, get your pay stub. Sometimes we get things attached to our pay stub, things from, how to donate here and the IRS information and all that. So we're going to, we've got agreement from these different agencies to attach to the pay stub a checkup on your doctor's license information. And they're going to appear on all the warrants issued by the State Controller's Office. And you see it's like 440,000 individuals. A lot of people. Yeah. The next is working with the AARP, a huge membership, AARP. And they've agreed to provide board information at their various conferences and on their publications and on their website. And by December 2016, we're reaching out to the AARP both in Northern and Southern California, and we're waiting for a response, but they seem to be very receptive with providing this information to their members. Another area has a large number of members is our unions and our pension funds in California. And by this coming April, spring, summer, et cetera, we're going to have an article that is prepared for CalSTRS and the California State Retirees Organization to run information about the board and its website in their publications. That's 934,000 people in the target audience. Next area is different various other types of media. People have heard of iHeartRadio, NPR, Capital Public Radio, and so we're going to provide interviews to these various types of agencies, and we're going to interview board members will be called upon to provide their talent for these for this type of interview, and also some of our staff members to discuss the outreach campaign and provide public service announcements to these various media outlets. And by this coming end of the winter, December 2016, we expect to have this project at least initiated and probably hopefully have some of our information. You'll see them in these different entities. And so again, we have to get the public service announcement prepared before we can go out to these various groups. Now, another big group that has large contingencies, of course, is our legislative members in California, Congress, congressional members in California, and also local governments. Most of us subscribe to various websites for our congressmen or senators, and also various local government agencies, various city governments, and we hope to link into their newsletters to provide, again, information on the board's website, the Check Up on Your Doctor campaign. So in next week, various members of the medical board are going to be meeting one-on-one with various legislators, and we're going to talk to them about our campaign, about our public outreach campaign, and encourage them to provide this information to their constituents on their newsletters. Because, you know, most of us get, once a month, we get a newsletter from our assemblyman or state senator. So this should hopefully, after we speak with them next week, we'll start getting them to adopt this and put this in their future newsletters. That's it. So that's part of our phase one of our outreach program. And next time, we'll give you more information, and we'll probably go into maybe phase two, the next meeting. So. And then Kimberly has a couple more updates to add to this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. A couple things that actually happened after Dr. Lewis and Ms. Simoes and Ms. Hawkinson had put this together. A couple things happened, and so I wanted to bring that to your attention too. And Dr. Lewis had actually already talked about our information going in the California State Retiree, and each of you should have had a handout. I'm thinking that you received this, and it's also in the back. The article that ran is actually on page 8 there that you can see down here, and I think it looks really good. This went out to 34,000 individuals throughout the state, so that's our first actual release that we actually have that went out to everybody, and then, of course, the next will be going out on the pay stubs. One thing with the pay stubs that we're running into with some of the cities and the counties, and especially like in San Francisco when we've contacted them, is they're telling us that basically we do all direct deposit. So now I don't know if they then provide them a deposit slip, just like state, or not, but that's one thing that we're hearing from some of the entities that we're contacting. So we'll work with that and find other avenues for that. We did talk to the Sacramento City, and they actually would put messages into water bills. That was one thing, again, with the utility bills, it will cost us a little bit of money. It's about $500 plus some additional cost to that. So that might be something that we're looking into. And of course, we'd have to go through the approval process to get that approved, to move that forward. But I thought that was another good thing that we can possibly do. The San Francisco City and County actually has a wellness plan for their employees, and we actually spoke to them, and they're actually interested in two things. First, they'd like a speaker to come and talk to their employees, and then also possibly putting out our materials. So that's another thing that goes in line with our tasks up there. We also spoke with the Orange County Healthcare Agency, and they're planning an article on the campaign for their May issue of their employee newsletter and an email blast that will actually reach to 3,000 agency employees to alert them. So that's one other thing that kind of falls into our plan. And then the last thing is that the Contra Costa County actually said that they'll put their message on their cable TV bulletin board, where they can reach a much broader audience of county residents. So those were updates that came in just over the last couple days that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention as well. So we're doing everything that we can to spread the word about the medical board.
Excellent. Very good. That was a good update, just the last couple of days, too. That's very, very good. Thank you. Any comments from my fellow board members about this? Yes, Dr. Hawkins.
It's a great start. I just wonder if we've developed ways to track how effective these communications are.
So there's kind of two ways that we're looking at this right now, and we're just starting the second way. The first way is obviously just measuring our hits to the website and see if those increase the more information that we get out. The other thing that we're doing, and we just started it on one of our brochures, I'll be talking about a little bit later, is we're putting a code, it's an IT issue, and so it's the QR code, I believe is how you do it, and when an individual goes into the website from that link, it looks like you're going straight into just a medical board link, but you're actually going into a link that says, this person got to this from this specific brochure. So that's what we're starting to target as well, so we can actually see which type of outreach is the most effective. So that's something we're working with our IT to do. And of course, that's again when they click on something. So if we put it out in a brochure and we email it out, they can click behind the scenes. It'll show that it went from that specific outreach.
Any other comments from board members? No? Public comments on agenda item number 4. I have one in front of me from Genevieve.
Geneviève Clavrol. I have another suggestion. The Board of Supervisors of Los Angeles County serve 10 million people, and they meet on every Tuesday. And their meeting in rebroadcast the next Wednesday, and is a huge viewership. And I'm sure the supervisor will be very happy to endorse such a project, because they have been very concerned about information for the public. So I would highly recommend that you do that, or I'd be glad to do it for you.
Thank you for the suggestion that, I think we just wrote that down. Thank you very much. Any other public comments here that I've missed? No? How about public comments on the telephone? Anybody? Oh, is there one
There are
coming
none
up?
at this time.
None on telephone? Okay. Do you have a comment on agenda item number 4? Did I apologize if did I get it? Hold on. Did I? I mean, it's fine. Go ahead. Oh, it does say 4. Oh, sorry. Thought it said 5. My fault. My eyesight.
Hello, my name is Marion Hollingsworth, and I'm here on behalf of the Consumers Union Safe Patient Project. I'd like to talk with you about your public outreach plan. Now, the board's public outreach plan should represent only the beginning of the efforts to make an impression on California patients, and should continue to be expanded to new groups, especially to reach out to large employers, the Walmart, even Target, places that government ones that employ a lot of people. However, the plan is still not targeted to reach patients at the teachable moments. For example, brochures and electronic messages where healthcare is delivered, such as hospitals, outpatient surgery centers, and physician's office. And also the plan, you mentioned a little bit of social media, but if you would tweet out or have more people go for the email list to make full use of social media, internet platforms throughout which most consumers get their information today. For example, I just looked up today on Facebook, and there is a Facebook page for the San Diego Medical Board office. That office could maybe send out information about doctors in that particular area, as could others around the state. Regarding the BREEZE program and the outreach plans for that, there have been some great improvements on the online information, but BREEZE is still not very user-friendly as it could be. For example, the site is exceedingly slow. I don't know if you've been there recently, but it can take anywhere between 45 seconds and 75 seconds to actually get up to a doctor's profile. The BREEZE website is quickly overwhelmed and often sends users to an error page. Physician records are not available unless one has the exact spelling, and sometimes doctors do use a different name on their license than they do with their patients, so that can make a difference in availability. One cannot search alphabetically within a city or county, so to find a doctor's name, one must scroll down or guess at the most likely page. And sometimes we found that current disciplines are not available on the doctor's BREEZE page, but rather under public documents, and most people don't know to go there. So a doctor could be completely clear on his BREEZE page, but still have some records available on public documents that most people don't know what to do. Now, we have directed these and a number of other concerns regarding the BREEZE website to leadership at the Department of Consumer Affairs in the past, but they've made no commitment to make needed changes. We recommend that the medical board urge DCA leadership to address these BREEZE barriers. And finally, the board's public outreach plan only focuses on directing patients towards finding their doctors. We recommend that the board include in all of its outreach efforts information that informs the patients that they can also go to the medical board to file a complaint. And finally, we do appreciate the fact that you have put out a brochure about the confusing statute of limitations law that governs the time frame during which patients must file a complaint. We think that's really great that you did that. And finally, we'd like to offer to be available when you do these interviews, possibly have one of the advocates come with you for some of the interviews so that we could also provide our perspective as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Hollingsworth. I have no further comments on agenda item number 4. I do? Oh, board member, there you go. There's another comment.
I'd like to thank our last speaker for those wonderful suggestions. I don't know if they've been forwarded to the board directly, but I, for one, would like to have a written copy of those suggestions if they can be made available.
Did I miss anybody else from the committee members? Okay. And I've already asked on the telephone. Let me ask again. Anybody else on the telephone?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're moving on to agenda item number 5, which is the update and discussion of the Public Affairs Strategic Plan activities with Ms. Kirchmeier and Ms. Mose.
So unfortunately, Ms. Hawkinson was actually has a family wedding, and so she was unable to make this board meeting. So we allowed her to take the time off. So Ms. Simos and I are filling in for her today. So a lot of this is actually due to her work, but we're going to actually kind of go over some of it. We're not going to go over every item on the strategic plan. It's all right there in your written materials, but we would like to just point out a few of them that we think are important. And I think with that, I'll kick it off to Jennifer.
So like Kim said, we're just going to highlight some of the ones that we think are important. So starting with the first one, on September 17th, 2015, Ms. Kirkmeyer attended a general medical staff meeting at the Sonora Medical Center, and the subject was Bending the Curve, the Opioid Epidemic in Tuolumne County. And the presentation included educating physicians on the board's enforcement process and the new guidelines for prescribing controlled substances for pain.
And we're doing more of these regarding the controlled substance, the guidelines for prescribing controlled substances for pain, reaching out to hospitals and different physician groups, because that is in our outreach plan to really educate individuals on the laws and regulations in California, and that kind of does that. We actually also have one of our board members who's going to be doing that to a group in June, and then also Dr. Bishop and I will also be doing that later in this year. I think it's scheduled in November. I did find that when I went by myself, not being a clinician, I had questions that I actually couldn't answer, so I will be reaching out to the board members to help me as I go forward with those, because it's definitely things, some of the questions I can't answer, so it's really helpful to have one of the members there with us. The other one that we'd like to point out is that we actually have been doing a lot of the town halls, and we do those either with assembly members or we do them with other individuals. We're also looking at really doing some of the senior scam. And all of these individuals, when we target this audience, it seems to be a lot of the seniors that attend both the town halls and the scam stoppers that are put out there. So I know one of our groups really is to hit the seniors to kind of show them not only, look at our board's website, but for those that don't have it, we also provide our phone number. So that's another one we wanted to update you on.
And so going along with the prescription drug abuse issue, so in February of 2016, Ms. Hawkinson was a presenter speaker at the second annual Dose of Awareness 5K Walk and Health Expo in San Ramon. And this was held by the National Coalition Against Prescription Drug Abuse. And she just spoke on the importance of checking on your physician's license and how to file a complaint with the board.
Then another one that we wanted to bring to your attention is not only, we actually have a blurb in our newsletter that says if you would like somebody from the medical board to come make a presentation, to please contact us. We've had a lot of hits from that, actually. And one group, which we're really happy about, is the medical assistant group. So medical assistants, as most of you know, have a limited scope of practice. However, we find in some physician offices, they tend to get expanded beyond what they should be doing. And we get a lot of complaints for that. You've seen accusations for that. So Ms. Webb and I had the opportunity to go out and speak to a big group of medical assistants in Sacramento. And actually on the 21st, now they've asked us to come and do the same in Modesto. So that's a group. So it's expanding even beyond providing the laws and regs to physicians, but it's also to those other individuals who report to physicians. So we're excited about that outreach.
Okay, and another thing that we've kind of noticed is overall has been a really good thing for the board, and it was mentioned in earlier public comment, was Twitter. So we've actually seen that it's been a good way to get the information out on the board, and it's been really beneficial to the board to get that information on, everything, like what we're doing, media campaigns, meetings, and so it's been really a good way to just get the information out there, and we'll continue to use that Twitter as a tool to get information out to consumers and others.
And one thing that we haven't looked at is in regards to our Twitter account, but one thing we may not want to look at in the future is when we put together our first, I don't know if it was a plan that we put out for Twitter or, kind of a policy on our Twitter and what we would put out. We said we wouldn't put out disciplinary actions through the Twitter account. We've really left that to the email subscription. But I think that might be something that this committee wants to consider in the future, is actually tweeting out when we actually take action against a physician, because it is public information. And again, we do use the email subscription, but not everybody is always subscribed to that. So we think that might be another avenue for Twitter as well. Another thing that we're doing is we're actually, we found that our articles in our newsletter, for those of you that read our newsletter, we actually have a section that is called question and answer. I can't remember, you asked for it. And it's a section where we get questions from individuals through our webmaster account, and then we provide the responses in there so all of physicians and everybody that reads our newsletter know that. Well, what's interesting is as of late, and there's actually the Santa Clara Medical Association's bulletin, the Merced Mariposa Medical Society, and the telehealth article, that was the article, and then the San Francisco Medical Society, they have a San Francisco Medicine. All of them have been republishing a lot of our articles. So we did one on cures that they republished, we did one on telehealth that's been republished, and then a lot of those, you asked for it, have been republished in all of these magazines. And so we think that that's another great benefit for those that read those magazines. Is that it? And then the last one that we wanted to bring to your attention is actually board member involvement. And that is in regards to Dr. Lewis. Dr. Lewis and I actually traveled to Fresno, and it was probably one of the best presentations I've ever attended. A lot of times, you know, you go out and you speak and you kind of get, you know, the stared looks at you out in the audience and everything. But this was a group of about 50 residents. They were family practice residents. And I brought up issues like, can you work for a layperson? And you saw blank stares in the audience, you know. What if somebody comes to you and wants you to be a medical director of a medical spa? All of these things, and I think Dr. Lewis can even pitch in there too, we just found that a lot of information about the board's laws and regulations just really at that level, they just don't know. And so I held up our Medical Practice Act and showed them the book and said, these are all the laws that you have to follow once you get your license. And I think it was kind of just like a shock to some of them. And so that was probably one of the best outreaches for physicians that we've had. We really went over a lot of the things that we see physicians getting into trouble for, a lot of the laws that are kind of obscure. And between Dr. Lewis and I, we kind of did a tag team show for them and going back and forth. It was very interactive, and I think it was probably one of the greatest education presentations that I've been to.
I think we had Kimberly become the doctor, and I was asking her questions as the doctor. Can you, or what about, or I need a prescription, but I don't really want to see you. They had no idea, you know, that these are issues that can come back and haunt you later. Had no idea, but I think we were invited by the family practice group, which is, we usually don't get invited by these residency groups to come and talk, and it was wonderful.
And so we're really going to do outreach to try to get more groups like that where we can get out to those individuals. And I think that covers everything unless any of the members have questions specifically from the outreach report.
Thank you very much. Any more comments before I get to public comment from members of the committee? Left? No? Okay, I have two people who'd like to provide public comment. So Genevieve, did Genevieve just walk? Oh, there you are. Oh, it's all right. Yeah.
Geneviève Clavrol. I am very concerned. Right now, I think a lot of people like myself who are in pain management, we are having a lot of issue when we're trying to find a new physician. And when you don't know the physician and you are seeing them for the first time, I think for them to demand that you sign a pain contract is absurd. And what I'm finding out is that those physicians have already checked the cure system. And first of all, I don't think they should do that without they talk to you first. And I think we're going to see more and more of that patients are not receiving the care. Myself, because I refuse to sign that contract, and because I refuse to give a urine specimen, because I have no feeling in my hands, so I requested a hat. Older women have a problem, and meantime we need a hat. They did not have one. They refused to provide me with one. I offered to have somebody go to my house and bring one. I demanded to change physician. I was refused care, because that physician on my medical record put down that I have refused to provide a urine specimen. I have refused to sign the pain contract. And I have demanded Percocet, which I never did. So I think, I'm not the only one it's happening to. And a person like myself, I had seen the same doctor for 10 years in pain management. He just lost his practice. That's why I had to change. But I have used the same pharmacy, the same doctor for 10 years. To say that I'm a drug seeking and put that on my medical record because they could not provide me, with equipment, I'm very concerned. Because, when I was involved with the medical board on a task force on drug, addiction, and I voiced my opinion about mandating signing the pain, contract on the first visit. That I think is very dangerous, and I think we're going to have a lot of repercussion. And personally, myself, I am going to report that physician. I think a physician who misrepresents the facts, falsifies the document, should not keep his license.
Thank you for your comment. I have Lisa McGivert for agenda item 5, right?
Good afternoon. I'm Lisa McGiffert with Consumers Union Safe Patient Project, and I just wanted to briefly comment in support of you considering to use Twitter to send out information about disciplined doctors and to include their names and their counties and a link to the action. I think this would go a long way to raise awareness in the public about the work that you do. And I recently looked up some information about how many people are on mobile phones, internet mobile phones, and we're at like 80%. So you really get to a broad array of the population, all income levels, all different groups of people are using mobile phones, so that might not ever know to sign up for your email list to get this kind of information. So I think that would be a really important step, and I hope that you will consider the recommendation to have a discussion about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments on the telephone about agenda item 5?
Not at this time.
Okay. So I will then move to agenda item 6. Agenda item 6 is the update, discussion, possible future action on the enhancements to the website. Ms. Kirschmeyer.
I wanted to just first point out, we did put in under tab 6 there, the consumer reports that came out in the ranking for a survey and ranking of state medical and osteopathic board websites in 2015. I think that I had sent this out earlier, but I'm happy to report that the medical board came in as the top state in the nation for our website. And so I just wanted to put that in there and make sure that individuals read it. However, when I'm looking at this, there were a couple areas, 2 areas where we scored lower than obviously all of the other areas. And so I've been looking at trying to find ways to improve those 2 areas based on looking at the states that did better than us. And so although I don't know the actual specific reasons for us going lower, and I do have to talk to the individuals who put the report together to get those specifics, but I did just want to show a couple things that I'm recommending that we do for our website. So this is kind of difficult to see, so I apologize ahead of time, but this is our existing homepage, and I'm hoping I can show this over here. Okay, so from our existing homepage right now, once you click on this or this up here, license search, then it takes you to a page where you then have to choose what type of licensee that you want to look at. Obviously, out of all of our licensees, we have 135,000 licensees who are physicians. That's our biggest licensing population. So that's usually where everybody's going to our webpage. So what I'm actually recommending is that we actually do a quick check from here. So basically, this says right here, quick physician name search. So rather than just having to go through those other steps, we would have this if an individual just knows the name of their doctor, they want to go directly to be able to put in that person's name and to look that up. You would click on that, and then it will actually take you to whoops, I jumped ahead. to the name search box where you would normally find. So that's one improvement. Some other states go directly from their homepage to a physician name search, and so that's one thing we would like to do. The other one, and I am sorry you can't read this, and I actually can't read it either. But in here we had this is our existing web page, and I'm going to, Liz, can you read that for me, please? Whoops. Right there. I'm sorry. I didn't realize this was going to be so small on here. Basically, what this says is, be aware that this information is available to you, and it talks a little bit about the physician profile. It's very bureaucratically written. So when I went and looked at the New York, actually they were one of the top ones, I looked at their web page, and they actually put it very clearly, like, here's where you can find information about your physician, here's where the profile is, and what this profile shows. It gives you information on the physician. So that's actually what I'm recommending that we do, is this actually has, thank you, Lisa. So what it says is, please be aware that the law authorizes the board to post certain information on the physician's profile indefinitely and other specified information for a limited period of time. See below link for specific information. It's very convoluted. It doesn't say what you're really looking at or anything. And so we're actually recommending that we make the changes to say, basically, this is where you go to get information on your doctor, and this is what the profile provides you. The other thing that we want to do is, because physicians are our largest group, if you look here, you can see that when you go into this page, when you click on this, you have to actually go through, you have to know to click on the physician and surgeon. So what we're also recommending is that when you first go to this page, this will already be opened. So you can look right down there, and then you can know to look up the physician by name, by their license number, county, everything else provided there. The other thing that we're doing is, one of the things that we actually have that a lot of other, not only states have, but also what other even boards under the Department of Consumer Affairs has, is this ability to search by the specialty of the physician, where they're located, their practice area. So all of that now, we're going to make that very plain English to where you can do that. So those are the changes that were going to be made. The other thing, before I get to this one, that we got hit on was the malpractice reporting. And we have specific laws that say what we can report for malpractice information. Well, unfortunately, when this report came out, the medical board didn't have that. That was one of the things that was under construction with Breeze. Right now, we were able, and we have all of the individuals who have malpractice settlements that fit into the criteria that has been provided by law. Those have now been put on the board's website. So I think if it was done over again, although we do have some disclaimers and everything that might be viewed negatively, we do now have the information on the individuals that have a malpractice settlement out there. And then this came up earlier during public comment, but this is the new flyer that we actually have. We're going to be providing this. A lot of individuals didn't know that there's a statute of limitations, and they sometimes would wait to send in their complaints, and then we'd find that there were issues with that. So we actually did a flyer. We actually worked with the Consumers Union Group on this together and had them review the wording and make sure it was clear. And we now have this done. It's actually going to be going into every complaint form that we actually send out, so individuals know to do this. And then when we also hear from third parties, such as a malpractice information, we also send this brochure to the individuals to tell them, hey, send the information in right away, because there is a statute of limitations. So those are some of the things in the web enhancements. And I apologize that it's not closer where you can see the enhancements there.
That's the end of your report, right? Okay, so on agenda item 6, I'm going to ask for any comments from the committee members here. Nothing to my right. I'm going to my left. Dr. Hawkins?
So I just wanted to actually really commend the Consumer Union and the Informed Patient Institute for this survey. It's actually very, very helpful. I did have an opportunity to read it before coming to the meeting. And as our executive director has already stated, she's already using that information to improve the ability to protect the public. The dialogue that's been occurring has also been extremely helpful. Thank you.
Any other comments? I have public comment from Yvonne Chung.
Good afternoon, Yvonne Chung with the California Medical Association. We just wanted to congratulate the board on their ranking in the Consumer Reports survey of state websites for medical boards. While we agree that there is always room for improvement, we have looked at other state websites and found that California is indeed far ahead of many other states, and I would also like to add that in comparison to many of the websites for other California state licensing boards, the medical board far and away provides much more information on their website and current information, I might add as well, than many of the other professions. And so I think that's something to be commended. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for your comments. And I have one more from Lisa McGifford.
Hello, Lisa McGifford with Consumers Union Project, and I'm glad that you all got to look at the ratings, and I wanted to just kind of go over a few things, and it's very nice to see that Kim is responding to some of the issues that we raised, that sort of best practices around the country. So we really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to working with you. We're not going to quit bugging you about improving the site, but this was a comparative situation, and CMA and we agree on something here, that California comparatively has a lot better site. A lot of the other sites are really terrible, and we hope to raise them up. And we did this report with the idea that we would work with the boards around the country to help them improve and to show them what other states are doing. And it's true that you got high scores because you have a lot of information. That's one of the reasons that you stood out a lot more than other states. You provide links to your legal documents, which we encourage, and you have a lot of information for consumers about the board members and about how to file complaints, and the other thing that what Kim was talking about that will further facilitate, and something that most of the boards that have aggregate sites like Breeze don't have, that direct link to the doctor's list. Some of you have to pull down a list and you get plumbers and massage therapists and everybody, and you have to wade through that. So that was held up as a best practice in our report. But here's some things that we think you could improve on. Kim's mentioned a few of them. You actually improved, while we were completing our report, one of the improvements we were asking for was that homepage simplification, look up a doctor. The board members saw that as a barrier, and we did too, instead of verify a license, and that was already provided. You don't have information about residency programs or federal action, links to federal actions. That's one place where you had points taken off, and same with the medical malpractice, which is a legal issue. It has to probably change the law to put all medical malpractice payouts out there. We'd like to see information about complaints, because you can't really know if a board's doing their job unless you see what's coming in the door. If there was a way for you to document the kinds of complaints that you're getting. And finally, we want to see plain language summaries on the profile, and some of that is included in Senate Bill 1033, but right now, a consumer has to literally scroll all the way to the bottom and read a bunch of legal papers to figure out why the doctor's on probation. So we look forward to working with you on further improvements, and we will continue showing that a state can do these things if they're really committed to it. So we appreciate all your work and look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much for your comments. And now I'll go to the telephone, if there's any comments on the telephone.
And not at this time.
Not this time? Okay. We don't need any action from the board, so we're fine. So that'll conclude agenda item number 6. Agenda item number 7 is future agenda items for the next meeting. Do any committee members here have any future agenda items they'd like to put on for a future meeting? No? None? Anybody, any public comments? I don't have any here in front of me. Anybody I missed for public comments? No? And on the telephone, any public comments on the telephone about agenda item number 7?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, seeing none, seeing no further business needs to be conducted, I'll now adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to ask all of you to please turn your cell phones to silent and make sure they are off so we can avoid unnecessary feedback. You may notice board members accessing their laptops during the meeting. They are doing solely to conduct board business. This is an official business meeting of the Medical Board of California. As such, disruptions of the board's business will not be tolerated. We have a designated time on the agenda for public comment and ask for public comment on each agenda item. I ask that you be respectful of the need for the board to conduct its business. Should anyone disrupt the meeting, I will ask that person to conduct him or herself in an orderly manner so we may conduct our business. This meeting is available via teleconference. Individuals listening to the meeting will have an opportunity to provide public comment and will be assisted by a moderator who will be facilitating the teleconferencing process. Hello. For those members of the public participating via teleconference, please wait until the moderator has introduced you before you make your comments. To make a comment during the public comment period, press *1. You will hear a tone indicating you are in the queue for comment. If you change your mind and you do not want to make a comment, please press the # sign. Assistance is available throughout the teleconference meeting. To request a specialist, press *0. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes per agenda item. During agenda item 2, public comments on items not on the agenda, the board has limited the public comment period for individuals on the teleconference to 20 minutes. In addition, public comment from individuals here at the meeting will also be limited to 20 minutes. During public comment on any other agenda item, 10 minutes will be allowed for comments from individuals on the teleconference line and from those in the audience. After 10 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. Business Services staff will be assisting me with receiving the public comments via teleconference during this meeting. The board welcomes public comment on any agenda item, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. I would like to request that speakers complete a speaker's slip, which looks like this, so I can call you by name at the appropriate time and the record of this meeting is complete. However, this is voluntary. If you could please give the speaker slips to Miss Lisa Toof, and then she will hand them to me. Lisa, are you here? Hello, good afternoon. I will do my best to call upon everyone who has supplied a slip and to recognize those who wish to make any comments. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic and to keep your comments 3 minutes or less. We plan to adjourn today at 5:30. I would like to introduce Christine Lally from the Department of Consumer Affairs. Good to see you. And our former colleague and dear friend, Barbara Yaroslawski, who is also with us. We'll have an opportunity today to honor her service, but thank you for being here at this portion of the meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask that Ms. Toof please call the roll.
Dr. Bolat? Dr. Bishop? Judge Feinstein? Dr. Gonadev?
Here.
Dr. Hawkins?
Here.
Dr. Kraus?
Present.
Ms. Lawson?
Here.
Dr. Levine? Dr. Lewis?
Present.
Ms. Pines?
Here.
Ms. Sutton Wills?
Present.
Mr. Wormuth?
Here.
Ms. Wright? Dr. Yip?
Here.
Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a quorum. I would like to remind the members that we'll be taking a roll call on every action item as we've just done. Now, moving on to Agenda Item 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. I have no speaker slips. Are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. Seeing no public comments or comments from the board members, we can now move on to our next agenda item, approval of the minutes from the January 22nd, 2016 and the February 26, 2016 board meetings.
I'm, second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes. I have no speaker cards, no public comment. Are there any comments from the phone on the approval
Not at
of the
this time.
minutes? Thank you. Ms. Toof, can you please call the roll?
Are we calling vote on each individual one or both together?
The motion was for both of them together.
Thank you. Dr. Bolat? Dr. Bishop? Judge Feinstein? Dr. Gonadev?
Abstain as I wasn't here in January meeting.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines?
Aye.
Ms. Sutton Wills?
Abstain.
Mr. Wormuth?
Abstain.
Ms. Wright? Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move to Agenda Item 4, the President's Report. As is our custom here at the Medical Board, we like to administer a ceremonial oath of office to our new colleagues, and we'll be doing so. We're very fortunate to have the legislature appoint 2 new members to this medical board, and I'll say a little bit about each, and then we'll do the oath of office and take some pictures, and I would ask our colleagues if they want to make any comments to please do so. So we have 2 new members. Let's start with David Wormuth, was appointed on February 29th, 2016 by then Speaker Tony Atkins. David resides in San Diego, and he is a respected civic leader both in San Diego and when he lived in the greater Los Angeles area. He attended Miami University and received his BA in Political Science, International Relations. He was a pioneer in the early computer IT days, served as Director of Marketing, and he has assisted federal, state, and local governments for their computer and IT needs. He's a true pioneer. His civic activities include leading the Los Angeles chapter of the NAMES Project, the San Diego Men's Chorus, and he recently stepped down as a member of the San Diego LGBT Center's Community Leadership Council. So it's great to have David joining us on this board. So we'll do yours first, Mr. Wormuth, if that's okay, and then we'll go on to Ms. Sutton Wills. We're going to do it in the front.
Wall of shame.
I'm going to do it line by line. This is more for my benefit, so I don't miss anything. I appreciate it. Okay. So you can say I, and you say your name. I, David Wormuth, do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That I will. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. And the Constitution of the State of California. Against all enemies. foreign and domestic, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, to the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the State of California, and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation, or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. You did it. Thank you. Welcome.
Good ball.
No, okay, we'll move the agenda, all right. He's well liked already.
Yeah, right.
And I have, if everyone will just indulge me, I have a few things that I could say about Ms. Sutton Wills. First of which, we are great to have another attorney on this board. Welcome. And she is currently staff counsel at the California Teachers Association. She currently serves as a member of the American Bar Association Employment Rights and Responsibilities Ethics Subcommittee. And she has presented on those issues on labor and employment to the American Bar Association. She's also covered topics on patient protection in the Affordable Care Act, ethics and professional responsibility, the impact of public pension programs on collective bargaining, and disability discrimination. In 2012, she served as chair of the Labor Yeah, I'm going to talk about committee rosters. Thank you. I wanted to this is 4B now we're moving on to. I wanted to let everyone know about the board's legislative day, which was mentioned in Dr. Lewis's committee. It's been scheduled for May 11th, next week, 2016. It is our intent to meet with several state and assembly members to educate them on the board, our role and function. In addition, we'll be asking members to use their social media websites to get information regarding the board out to their constituents. We are looking forward to this day and thank the members and staff who have offered to assist in these meetings. We did this last year. I thought it was very successful. Thanks staff and the members that participated. And it was, I thought the elected officials and their staff appreciated it as well. So I know that May 11th will be a success. Over the last quarter, I've had several meetings regarding issues related to the board. I had a call with the board of the Podiatric Medicine's chair, as well as Senator Hill's office. In addition, I've had calls with board staff to discuss issues and projects at the board. I would like to draw the members' attention to BDR 4B-1 and 4B-2, which is the updated committee roster. We have several new members, and we will be reaching out to make new committee appointments shortly. We are in need of members interested in serving on the Enforcement Committee, the Application and Special Programs Committee, and a public member on the Special Faculty Permit Review Committee and the Prescribing Task Force. If any member has interest in these committees or would like to change their current committee assignment, please contact me or Ms. Kirkmeyer. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Okay, no, seeing none. I do have a speaker slip for item 4B. Ms. Ramos? Thank you. 7B. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Michelle Montserrat Ramos. I'm here on behalf of Consumers Union Safe Patient Project. We see that the ratio of public members to physician members is only 1 public member to 5 physicians on the board's powerful executive committee, 0 public members the 3 physician members on the board's Important Enforcement Committee, and only 2 public members to 4 physicians on the board's Public Outreach, Education, and Wellness Committee. These ratios have only become worse since the board's last distribution of its committee roster in October of last year. It is clearly the intention of the legislature that public members be much more heavily represented in deliberations of the medical board. As you know, California law requires that 7 of 15, nearly half, of the MEC board members be public members. We recommend that the board set a policy and establish a practice that all committees of the medical board reflect a balance similar to that required by the legislature for the full medical board. We urge the board to revisit its committee compositions with the aim of having them reflect the nearly 50-50 physician-public member split of the board itself. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional comments to item 4B? Seeing none from the public, are there any comments on the telephone?
Not at this time.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll now move to agenda item 5, board member communications with interested parties. Ms. Wright?
Okay. Last Saturday, I was at the 35th Annual Gala for Delta Sigma Theta, and I met the new Dean of Charles Drew Medical University, who I actually told to come here and present on that topic, what she's looking to do. So we did have an extensive conversation about the board and public outreach and their path for growth at the university.
Dr. Kraus?
Last week, I was an invited speaker at the annual meeting of the Federation of State Medical Boards, speaking on issues in relation to physician recommendation for marijuana and physician use of marijuana.
Doctor?
Last week I was at the same meeting actually welcoming the entire Federation of State Medical Board on behalf of Medical Board of California, which is the host state. And as also an active member of CMA and involved in various activities in my previous life, I do meet people, but I usually keep the board business and California Medical Association business totally separate.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing no, it's so important that members are emissaries for the board, so these interactions are very important. And so I thank all of you for doing that and promoting the mission and goodwill of the board. And we'll have a report from Dr. Lewis, the good work his committees and the other committees are doing. It's important for the public to know about that. So thank you. Are there any comments from the public on item 5? I have no speaker cards. All right, thank you. Are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move to item 6, discussion and possible action on the 2017 proposed board meeting dates. Ms. Kirkmeyer.
Good afternoon, members. I would like to draw your attention to Agenda Item 6. It's on page BRD 6-1. For the 2017 dates identified, this will actually allow the board appropriate amount of time between meetings and also works with other meetings that are scheduled throughout the year, such as the FSMB meeting. If no members have any concerns with these dates or locations, I'd actually like to ask for a motion to approve the board meeting dates and locations as identified in BRD 6-1.
Can I look at that first?
I don't know if anybody has any issues with them. This was actually the first year I think we've been able to schedule out almost evenly in between each of the board meetings. And we've had individuals with time frames in the first week, and we didn't even have to run into any of that. So it looks like it's the last week of each of those months. So January, April, July, and October. The meeting locations would be January is in Sacramento, April would be in Los Angeles, July in San Francisco again, and then October in San Diego. Kind of
All
our
right.
normal.
Great. There's a motion.
Looking for, I move to approve the dates.
It's been moved by Ms. Wright and seconded by Dr. Lewis. Is there any discussion on the proposed dates from the members? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public? No public comments. Are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. Seeing no comments on the phone, Ms. Toof, please call the roll.
Dr. Bolat? Judge Feinstein? Dr. Gonadev?
Aye.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines? Aye. Ms. Sutton Wills? Mr. Warmoth?
Aye.
Ms. Wright? Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you, colleagues. We'll now move to item number 7, Executive Management Reports. Ms. Kirkmeyer. And I do have a speaker card for 7B, so just want to let you know. Thank you.
I will not be going over all of the administrative summary, the enforcement program summary, or the licensing program summary unless someone has a question, because they're all in your packet. However, I do have a few items I would like to bring to your attention. I'd first like to draw the members' attention to page BRD 7A-4, which is the board's fund condition. At this time, the board's fund reserve is projected to be at 3.8 months at the end of the fiscal year and below the mandate in fiscal year 17-18. This is something the board staff will continue to watch closely and work with the department budget staff. I'm pleased to report that the board's budget change proposals to hire an additional staff in our central complaint unit and to increase our expert reviewer funding was approved by both the Senate and Assembly budget committees. Once the budget bill makes it out of both of the Senate and the Assembly and the governor signs it, the board will be able to hire this one additional staff in our enforcement unit. As stated at the last meeting, the other two budget change proposals going through the process is the augmentation for the Attorney General's office due to Senate Bill 467 and the change due to the transition of the registered dispensing optician program to the Board of Optometry. So we'll be losing 0.5 position and $39,000. We continue to monitor the CURES registration process and notify physicians that they must be registered by July 1st of 2016. We have placed information on our website as well that provides tutorials, frequently asked questions, and helpful tips. We have had to answer a lot of calls from physicians who are trying to get registered and may have had an issue with the information that is on file with the Department of Justice compared to what the board has on file. We've been able to assist the physicians to help them get registered. I was recently also asked to assist in sending physicians a survey regarding the CURES 2.0 system. This survey will go out probably in the fall and will ask physicians how CURES 2.0 is working for them and any problems they are having, as well as any suggestions for improvement. This survey is part of the study on opioids and part of the grants that grant work that's being done by the California Department of Public Health after receiving a grant from the CDC and also from DOJ, who was also awarded a grant to study the issues with the opioid epidemic, including the use of cures. DOJ wants to use this survey to determine if changes are needed to the system. The survey, of course, will be more on the CURES 2.0 system and not on the registration process. So are there any questions so far regarding to CURES?
Doctor?
Ms. Kirchmeyer, so I see that $6 million will be repaid to us, 16, 17, is that correct?
Yes, yeah. So, and just let me let you know kind of how that works, Dr. Gonadev. Let me get to that page first, sorry. When this gets put into the information provided by our budget office, if we are over our mandate, though, they will look at this again to determine if that those monies will be repaid. But scheduled right now, it's $6 million in that year, and then $2 million in 17-18, and that will leave us with an outstanding balance of $7 million.
Hopefully we get it back, so.
Are there any other questions on, is this part of 7A still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I would also like to draw your attention to page 7E1. With the elimination of the board members on the Health Professions Education Foundation, I've actually asked the executive director of the foundation to provide a written report to include in the board updates. This will ensure that we stay informed about the actions of the foundation. In regards to the issue of overprescribing psychotropic medication to foster care children, you will find a written update on page BRD 7A3. In addition to that report, I just wanted to let you know that we recently had the exit interview with the Bureau of State Audits. As you are aware, they were requested to perform an audit on this issue. While the audit really focused on the Department of Healthcare Services and the Department of Social Services and the counties, a portion of it also reviewed the board and what we are doing on the issue. That report should be released in the summer. We will continue to move forward on this issue and be proactive in identifying physicians who may be inappropriately prescribing. There's also a bill related to this issue that Ms. Simoes will be discussing tomorrow. I wanted to let you know that we have been meeting with the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, who is taking the lead on ensuring the End-of-Life Option Act is fully implemented by June 9th, when this law takes effect. We have developed a webpage specifically to this issue, which will be released upon approval of the Department of Public Health's website. While we developed some of the forms, the other forms were actually developed by Public Health, so we need to ensure that the links to those forms are on our website, and we have to make sure that they're available prior to us releasing our website, so we're kind of just waiting for them right now. We also have met with some experts in this area, and we will also be having a presentation at our July board meeting regarding this new law that takes effect on June 9th. I wanted to update the members on the prescription opioid misuse and overdose prevention work group led by the California Department of Public Health. And for those new members, this is actually a statewide work group with state agencies involved. It has other departments from other boards from the Department of Consumer Affairs, Department of Healthcare Services, Department of Insurance, Department of Justice, Workers' Comp. It's like a very large work group on this issue. We've been a part of this work group for almost 2 years now. While a lot of great collaboration has been done by this work group, and we've worked together on some messaging and outreach, the work group has now identified some priorities and are developing different task forces that will be working in different areas on this issue. I'm very excited about the work that is going to be happening with these task forces. So the different task forces are the Communication and Outreach Task Force, the Integrated Healthcare and Policy Task Force, the Treatment Task Force, and the Data Gathering and Sharing Task Force. We will be working with Public Health on these issues, and I look forward to reporting back to you once these task forces get off the ground. This really has been a concentrated effort by all of the entities, and we continue to bring in more stakeholders with that same goal in mind. And I'm glad that finally it seems now we're actually to the point where we're going to get some work done. It was kind of like for a year we've been kind of talking about it. Now we're actually putting, the wheels on the bus and moving forward. And then lastly, I would like to remind members to please turn in all of your travel expense claims as soon as possible. The cutoff date is June 1st, and we want to make sure you get paid by the end of the fiscal year. This concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions, colleagues? I don't see any. Looking to my left, to my right. All right, I have a speaker card for Ms. Chong.
Good afternoon, Yvonne Chung with the California Medical Association. We wanted to raise an issue related to Agenda Item 7B, the Enforcement Program Summary, specifically on the issue of the Expert Reviewer Program. In the report, it indicates that the board is seeking expert reviewers there's a list of specialties listed there. We would like to suggest that the medical board consider allowing osteopathic physicians to serve as expert reviewers as appropriate in specialties where you're having trouble recruiting MDs to serve. As you know, CMA represents all physicians in California, both allopathic and osteopathic, and the state of California recognizes osteopathic physicians and allopathic physicians as equivalent. They both receive a physician and surgeon's license. And in addition, there are medical education, their postgraduate training. They're going to eventually be accredited by a merged organization. So more and more, the differences between allopathic and osteopathic physicians are shrinking. We understand that there may be some concerns regarding whether or not it weakens enforcement cases if the expert reviewer is a DO and the licensee is an MD, but we think it's worthwhile for the board to take a look with their legal counsel as to whether or not this actually does pose a barrier, because there is a pool of highly qualified physicians who would be able to serve as expert reviewers in many of these specialties, and we urge the board to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the public on the executive director's report? Okay, seeing none, are there any comments from the phone on item 7?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move to item number 8, update on the Federation of State Medical Boards. Ms. Kirkmeyer.
The Federation of State Medical Boards annual meeting took place in San Diego last week. On BRD 8-1, you will find the agenda for the meeting. While there were several great speakers, including our very own Dr. Kraus, who spoke on legal and legislative challenges of the changing medical marijuana landscape, I was extremely impressed with the opening presentation by the United States Surgeon General. He focused most of his presentation on the issue of overprescribing of opioids, but also talked about stress and physician burnout. Dr. Murthy talked about what is being done at the federal level on both of these issues. There were several different sessions, but overall, with the new chair being elected, I see physician burnout as being one of the leading issues at the Federation in the next year. They will also be taking a look at physician compounding, among other topics. Dr. Gonadev, Dr. Lewis, and Dr. Kraus also attended the meeting, as well as Ms. Delp and Mr. Warden, and I would like to actually ask the board members if they have any additional comments regarding the meeting and their takeaways.
Please share.
Yeah, I do want to thank Ms. Kirschmeyer for actually writing together for me what to say at the opening. So it was just to give you a little fun, it was the top 10 odd laws in California. So the entire meeting had so much fun just at the beginning. So we started with a great note and finished in a great note. So Kim, thank you.
Dr. Kraus?
This was only my second attendance at the FSMB meeting, but it's a great opportunity to meet colleagues on state medical boards around the country and to discuss how we're facing identical circumstances and to look at different solutions. So I would encourage our own board members to look at the dates for the meetings over 2017 and 2018 to see if you could make time to attend. And I'd also like to strongly compliment Ms. Kirschmeyer. I don't know how long she's attended these meetings, but she's sought after for her opinion and very well respected, and that makes me proud to serve on this medical board.
The highlight for me of the meeting was the networking for the western region of state medical boards. And as Dr. Kraus said, Kimberly presented the highlights of what we are doing in Medical Board of California. And you know, probably 50% of the questions that were taken that whole session were to Kimberly and to get advice on, for their own state medical boards on their issues and their struggles, what they feel with their own boards and their own legislator and policies. And so I was also very proud and very happy that we were, the opinion of our executive director was highly sought after at that networking meeting.
Great. Thank you for participating at that important convention. Are there any comments from those in the audience on this agenda item 8? Okay, seeing none, are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move to agenda item 9, update, presentation, and possible action on the sunset review process, new sunset issues. And Ms. Kirkmeyer, because we have new members and to refresh the memories of those of us that have been on this board, can you start with, as your report does, what is the sunset review process? Or what is sunset? Like, you know, what, all right.
So the sunset review, and it's kind of outlined in here, this is actually a joint venture by both the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee, as well as the Assembly Budget and Professions Committee, to review the boards under the Department of Consumer Affairs to see if they're meeting their mandates. It's a process that begins with a questionnaire that is sent to the board. I believe last year, I think we had 5, maybe 2-inch binders, I believe, that was the medical board's report that we provided to the legislature. Kind of outlining, they basically ask a ton of questions about all of the different avenues, from budgets to personnel to licensing to enforcement. And once they do that questionnaire to us, we work really hard to put that together, and that does come to the full board for its review and information and input. We usually have a subcommittee that will help us with the writing of it and the overview, because unfortunately, because the board meets quarterly, it doesn't give us a lot of time to meet with the board itself to go over it. And so usually you're seeing a final product. But what happens is after that report gets done, then we actually goes to the Senate, both the Joint Committee, they review it, and then they write back to us and tell us what issues they have with the board or what they'd like us to respond to, areas where they have concern, areas where they have questions. Sometimes it's just, how many doctors did you do, when this bill was implemented, how many doctors have applied for that? It could be as easy as that, all the way up to, we have concerns with the length of time it takes for enforcement or the vertical enforcement process. All of those are kind of the questions that come forward. And then what happens is then the board president and usually the executive director then will be called before those committees in March. And so we would then have to provide our presentation. Basically, all of this is accumulated because we have a statute right now that says on January 1st, 2018, the laws of the medical board, establishing the medical board, are repealed. So that's the real basis of it, because this whole process goes on for the legislature then to carry a bill that will extend the board, hopefully for 4 years. We did this in 2012 and 2013, and then the bill was carried in 2013 to move us from 14 to 18. We got 4 years. There have been boards that go through the process that have gotten 1 year. I believe just recently there was a 1-year one, and then there have been also boards with 2 years. I'm looking at Miss Lawley. I think that's kind of been the issue, and it depends on how many issues you have as to kind of where you are in that scheme. We've been able to do the 4 years, so we were happy with that. It is a long and arduous process, but it's one that's very valuable for the consumers of California because they need to take a look at how the boards are doing and see that. So I think I've kind of went outside of my notes here, so give me a second. So the process is all outlined in your notes. Part of the issue I wanted to go over is we had 39 issues. Part of what they look at as well as your past information and your responses to those surveys and what have you done. And so we had 39 issues last year that came, or when we did it in 2013, that came from the Joint Committee. However, I know when everybody hears 39 issues, it's like, oh my gosh, 39 issues with the medical board. But I want to let you know 20 of those were actually brought from the medical board to them. Because the other part of the Sunset Review that's really important for us is there's a new issues section. And that is the board's opportunity to put something in where maybe we need legislation, where we have an issue that we want them to look at for us and maybe carry that in our sunset bill. It's a great opportunity for us. So of those, 20 of those were ours. So on pages BRD 9-21 to 27, we actually put a chart together of those 39 issues. And actually, I'm happy to report, I believe that there's only 3 of those areas, and they're highlighted in yellow on those pages, that the medical board actually still has outstanding. And 2 of the 3 are actually issues that we believe, once we meet with committee staff, that there won't be any need to move forward on them. And I'll just go over those real quickly. The first one is actually the if you look on page 21, the first one there in yellow is actually the reentry issue. So the length of time that an individual can be out of practice before they actually have to prove that they're competent. As you know, in California, as long as an individual continues to renew their license, they can continue to practice. There's nothing that has to tell us, hey, I've been out of practice for 2 years, and so, or 3 years, whatever we determine, and then they have to do a competency assessment. We don't have that in California, but we do have have it on our probationers. If they've been out of practice for 18 months, they have to go to basically PACE. So that was an issue we had identified. It's an issue we're still working on. Part of the reason we're still working on it is because there isn't really a true great reentry program for physicians. So one thing the board has really been good about is not putting in a requirement on a physician that they actually can't meet. So that's where we're looking at that. The other issue is on page 23, and that was the committee, and I'm not really sure where this came from, but they thought that we should engage stakeholders to look at ways to analyze current data from a lot of healthcare facilities. We've tried to meet with or kind of talk about this with the committee. We want to talk to them to say, at the time, I think they weren't sure that we really should take this on. It really wasn't the role of the medical board, and so we're going to be talking to them about that and saying, is this still an issue that you want us to look into? Because from our perspective, it seemed to be something that the committee should assist with, and so we'll talk to them about that. And then the last and probably the most controversial would be on the last page, 9-27, and that was the consolidation of the osteopathic physician board as well with the medical board. And so it was to bring the allopathic and osteopathic boards together. That's another issue that we will be meeting with specifically Senate Business and Professions Committee staff, because I believe that that's where that came from. And there's a lot of issues around that, in that I believe the osteopathic physicians were created by an initiative, and I don't know if that would require an initiative to change that. But we'll be talking to the Senate staff to make sure that, do they want us to really reply to these issues and move that forward. So those are the outstanding issues from the last time. And then the last thing I want to bring to your attention, and I'll go to those pages, and I'm not going to go over them specifically unless any member wants to, is we've identified, before we spend a lot of time and energy in putting together the sunset report and the new issues, I want to make sure that these issues, rather than us go work on them and then bring it to the board as we've done in the past, and then have the board say yay or nay, I would actually like to start it early, because one thing I didn't say is we don't even have the questions. This is very unusual, but we don't even have the questions from the committee yet. I'm going based on looking at what the boards from last year had to reply, so we're hoping that it will be similar in process and everything. So we're looking at, I think there's 11 issues. They start on BRD 9-3 to 9-4, and I'm just going to read the titles, and if anybody has questions outside of what's written here, please let me know. But I'd like to know if the board would like us to move forward with these issues in our sunset report, so we will begin to work on them. So the first one is the expiration date of our licenses. Right now, it's by birth month, and we would actually like to start that 2 years from the issuance date, because we don't want to have to prorate. That's an issue that's been coming up, and we would like to issue licenses for 2 years from the date of issuance rather than on the birth month. Postgraduate training requirements, you all heard in the licensing committee, we want to extend that from 1 year to possibly 2 or 3 years. Data collection for outpatient surgery settings, this came out of prior legislation last year. We had tried to get some requirements in last year, and basically at the end, due to opposition from different interested parties, we said we would take this back, discuss it at the board. We have a meeting actually set on May 26th already to discuss this with the interested parties, but we think that that should be an issue in the sunset. Amendments to the adverse event reporting for outpatient surgery settings, that also is one that the law that went into effect, it left us with the same adverse event reporting as hospitals. However, and we've been doing that now for 2 years, and in looking at the reports, people are confused because sometimes what a hospital has to report is very different from an outpatient surgery setting, so we'd like to look at some amendments to that. But again, we'd have to bring interested parties together because we want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Posting of information related to a probationary license. Right now, the law states that if an individual is a licensee and gets placed on probation, that information is on our web page indefinitely, or as long as it's public, which is indefinitely. However, if an applicant is issued a probationary license, as soon as they go off probation, it goes off the board's website. We think that that's unfair, and so we want to make sure that that's covered. Reporting of 805.01 reports. Right now, peer review under 805, you actually have a penalty for the peer review entities who don't report to the medical board. We didn't put in penalties in 805.01, which is a pre-report, and we've had a very limited number come in, and we think that that's a consumer protection issue, so we'd like to add penalties to that. We have both some enforcement and some licensing program cleanup that are both listed there. The Health Professions Education Foundation, as you know, we got removed from that. That was an issue actually Mr. Serrano-Sul brought up at the last meeting. And then the Specialty Board approval. This is one that the Medical Board brought up under last sunset, and due to opposition, it wasn't able to get into any legislative change. But again, we continue to believe that the board is not the entity to perform this function, and we would request that that be removed through the legislative process. We know that some of these will be controversial, but we would like to write them up for inclusion into the sunset review.
Are you asking for a
I
motion?
would ask for a motion to add.
Or before that, we'll get to the motion. But colleagues, do you have any questions about the process or any element of Ms. Kirkmeyer's report? Do you think things should be added to what just, or do you want to emphasize that, something actually, emphasize any one of these? But any comments I know would be really helpful to staff as they go through this process. It's only once every 4 years, right, or so.
Comment.
I'm looking to my left. Well, I'll look to my right first. Was there a comment here? Yes, Doctor.
I'm just wondering if when we meet with legislators over the years, are you getting a sense that some other things might come up? They might be hot buttons that we might be able to start working on? Because here's a list here. It looks pretty obvious, but are you hearing something merging themes?
I think that the timelines for enforcement will be a big issue for the medical board. I think vertical enforcement will still be an issue for the medical board. And I think we'll actually probably have specific questions to both of those issues. We have and I don't see David, Mr. Chris isn't here yet, but, they have issues for hiring individuals, and which has negatively impacted our enforcement timelines. In our central complaint unit, as I've stated and is in our report, we've increased time there. I think that the timeframes will be one issue that comes up that will be a hot button, because it is with almost every board. I'm going to look at Ms. Lawley. I think it's almost been every board that has come up with in regards to the enforcement timeframes, and a lot of that has to do with due process, but there's also some other things boards can do. The FTC may come up as an issue. The decision by the Federal Trade Commission with versus the North Carolina dental examiners might be an issue. But that'll come out as a question for us, not
later.
Same thing with the timelines. They'll come out as questions from us for the board specifically, I think.
Okay, so there are other things you might be able to add to this list?
Yeah,
No.
there might be.
No, okay.
They won't be coming in as new issues. They will probably be more like responses to the committee as they bring them up.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just for Kim, is anyone brought up the intrastate license compact issue for us in California other than what we decided as a board?
To date, no, but that could always come up. I think what's going to happen is now, we didn't talk about this, but there's 23 states that are either have adopted it or that are in process. I think as other states get it, I think there will be interested parties that come to California to try to get it put in California once it gets going in other states.
Dr. Hawkins?
Any risk of bringing these up as new issues, the completion timeframe, and maybe shooting herself in the foot?
Yeah, completion timeframe isn't on my list, just so you know. That will be one I'm sure that will come out of the committee. And you're absolutely right, Dr. Hawkins, and that's why when we've looked at this, we've really looked at it as, are these things that we really need to change the legislation and that we want to put in as new issues? And staff will know that my big thing was, hey, I don't want to put in a bunch of issues because it looked like we had a bunch of problems when really we didn't. A lot of them were ours. But these are so important, I think, to the board, for the most part, all of them. And this is the right time to get legislative changes made. So I don't see any of these as problems that will come back to hit the board.
Thank you.
I had a question, and maybe it's in here, so forgive me if I missed it. But this board has discussed the statement plaque that's in a physician's office. That's in there.
No. I've
Go
been
ahead.
sitting here racking my brain
That
because
was that it?
Ms. Webb and I have been saying, okay, we had one other thing that was, and that's it. Yes,
Okay.
the sign, and that should be added
you
to
would.
the list. Yep.
I think it was my view that it should be something along the lines of, I don't want to write it right now. But if you have questions, in addition, please call this number or, reference to the website. Sort of a how am I doing kind of thing. Yeah. My personal view is it should have that information, but, be a neutral statement, just matter of fact for the consumer. Are there any additional observations or comments from the board? No. Go, yeah, this is the time to add in, yeah.
Yeah, motion. Do you want a motion on this? I have nothing else except what we talked about added.
Okay, sure.
Any other comments?
No
I think
additional
it's time to
comments?
make, well, so I'll make a motion that staff entertain the additional comments, these plus the additional comments that we've mentioned by the board members.
All right. There's been a motion. It's been a second. Thank you. Before we take a vote, we'll do public comment. I do have one speaker card in front of me on Lisa McGiffert. Hello.
Good afternoon. I'm Lisa McGiffert with Consumers Union Safe Patient Project, and I just want to start by welcoming the new members. This is the first time in years that the consumer positions have all been filled, and we are delighted to see that finally come to fruition. Thank you for being here. A couple of things that we wanted to call to your attention that we would like to see in the Sunset Review. One of them is about outpatient surgery center settings, and we support the staff's position to get those surgery settings that are owned by physicians to report to the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development information about the procedures they're doing. We don't really have any idea what they're doing, and that should be done in a standard way, so we're glad to see that on your list. On the adverse event disclosures that occur in these outpatient settings, we urge the medical board to post these on the website, and if you need legislative approval to do that, please do. It is required by the law that covers hospitals at the Department of Public Health, and we think it covers you too, but if we need clarification, please do that. And then in the law, there's a requirement that you provide that information to consumers and journalists who ask for it, and that's under the hospital law, and our understanding is that it should apply to the outpatient settings too. We support the staff recommendation to look into the kinds of procedures or the kind of adverse events that these outpatient settings that might occur in them that are different than hospitals, but whenever there's an opportunity to be the same as the hospitals, that's good for comparison for consumers, so they can see are these more frequent in the outpatient settings or in hospitals. That's an important piece of information. The accreditors now are required to look into the background of the ownership interests, whether they've had accreditation problems in the past. We think they should also be required to look into the physicians, the owners of the physician owners' background. Is their license in good standing? That should be a requirement. Right now, there's a sign that's required to be posted in all the offices of physicians, and we've been talking to the staff for a while about our desire to change that sign so it's more clearly giving information to patients to include language about where to look up your doctor's history and how to file a complaint. Right now, the signs are pretty generic, and I think most consumers wouldn't know what it's about. Also on the statute of limitations, I don't have time to go into all the details about it, but there are some issues. It's a very confusing law, and often consumers don't know when their time limit is up. We've seen in other states where they require, if a complaint comes in from somebody other than the patient be notified that that complaint was there. And we support your recommendations on the 805 report, so we appreciate seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the public on item 9 and the motion to adopt those sets of recommendations? Seeing no additional comments from the audience, are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. Ms. Toof, can you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Dr. Bolat? Aye. Dr. Bishop? Aye. Judge Feinstein? Aye. Dr. Ganadev?
Aye.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines?
Aye.
Ms. Sutton Wills? Yes. Mr. Warmoth?
Aye.
Ms. Wright? Aye. Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Aye. Motion carries. All right. And now moving on to agenda item 10, update from the Department of Consumer Affairs, which may include updates pertaining to the department's administrative services, human resources, enforcement, information technology, communications, and outreach, as well as legislative, regulatory, and policy matters.
That's a lot.
I know. They do all that at DCA?
We do a lot.
Thank
And
you for
more.
being with us.
All right. Good afternoon, President and board members. My name is Christine Lally. I'm the Deputy Director for Board and Bureau Relations with the Department of Consumer Affairs, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. First, a very warm welcome to the new members. Welcome aboard on behalf of Director Kadani, and thank you for your service, and definitely look forward to working with you. Next, I'd like to update you, sadly, I might add, on a change to the department's executive team. After 8 years with the department, our Chief Deputy Director, Tracy Ryan, accepted a new job with the Rural County Representatives of California about 2 weeks ago. While we are still grieving her departure, we are extremely proud of her as she embarks on this new endeavor, and Tracy's contributions to the department continue. The department is also in the early stages of developing a training specifically for new executive officers and growing our next generation of EOs. DCA will be sending out a survey to all of our executive officers as well as board members to assess current training needs for executive officers, and we hope that you'll participate in that. That should be going out later this month. Additionally, DCA's Solid team, that's our training center, will be facilitating brown bag gatherings for our executive officers to facilitate networking and training opportunities for EOs. And actually, our first one is next week on May 11th, which coincides with your legislative day. So we'll have to catch Kim next time. Next, I'd like to update you on SB 1195, and that is a bill which the board will be discussing tomorrow. This bill is authored by Senator Jerry Hill, which, as I'm sure you know, is the chair of the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee. This bill was amended on April 6 to include a number of provisions that address some antitrust issues presented by the North Carolina Board of Dental Examiners versus the Federal Trade Commission U.S. Supreme Court decision that came out last February. One of the most significant changes proposed in SB 1195 that is relevant to DCA boards is that it grants the department director expanded authority over regulations to ensure they are not anti-competitive. Currently, the DCA director can only disapprove regulations if they would injure the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Should the executive director or board members have any questions regarding this bill or any other pieces of legislation, the department does have a ledge director, Ms. Melinda McLean, that is always available to assist. Finally, this afternoon, I wanted to provide an update on the BREEZE system, which is always a fruitful topic here at the board meeting, but I come with good news. First, wanted to start off with some statistics that, again, I think we're moving in the right direction. The board continues to see a very high volume of applications submitted online, and at the end of March, the medical board received about 8,500 applications online. For applications requiring a payment, this represents approximately 63% of the total application volume for that period. Renewals make up the vast majority of the board applications received online, a little over 7,700 at the end of March. And of those individuals who renewed online, which I think this statistic is if you listen to anything, listen to this. 99% of them were approved the very same day. So that is incredible customer service. At the department level, for the 18 programs on the Breeze IT system, we're approaching a milestone of about $200 million processed via the online Breeze portal. Just over half the money processed in Breeze has been via online, so we're very proud about that. Next, concerning Breeze, another topic that we've discussed here before, enhancements to the system, which we continue to work very closely with your executive director on. As you may be aware, DCA launched the second release of Breeze in January 19th, earlier this year. This added 7 boards and 1 bureau to the Breeze system. So now we have a total of 18 of our 40 programs on the Breeze system. Since the January launch, DCA and the Breeze vendor have drastically increased the number of system changes that are regularly deployed through maintenance updates. For example, in 2015, there was an average of 73 fixes deployed in the Breeze scheduled maintenance updates. Compared to January of this year, an average of 153 fixes, so more than double last year, are going into each maintenance release. The maintenance updates to the Breeze system occur every 6 to 7 weeks. The next scheduled maintenance that we're looking towards is in June, and there are approximately 250 changes in that release. Specific to the medical board, since January of this year, the Med Board has put forward and enacted 57 changes or enhancement and or fixes to the Breeze system. At the end of April, the Medical Board has a total of 159 outstanding defects and or enhancements pending for the Breeze system. A portion of these 159 are older requests. So DCA's IT team, along with your executive director, are going through to prioritize if some of those requests are still necessary. I also wanted to share with you an exciting opportunity that the department is embarking on, and this is a business analytics tool that we will be layering on top of the Breeze system. DCA is partnering specifically with Medical Board IT staff to pilot a new reporting tool that will eventually be used by all of DCA's boards and bureaus. The reporting tool is named QBERT, which stands for Quality Business Intelligence Reporting Tool, and it is linked directly to all of the data that's in the Breeze system. This reporting tool's objective is to provide the board staff greater flexibility to build and modify data reports. It puts the data directly in the hands of the board staff. Thus far, DCA has received positive feedback from the 4 programs in the pilot, and Medical Board is one of them. And just want to thank again your staff for the very valuable feedback on key areas to enhance the tool's effectiveness. This data analytics tool is scheduled for rollout department-wide in fall of this year. And we did a preview of the tool, I think it was December of last year. And once I saw that demo, I wish we had it the very next day. I think that was the sentiment of a lot of the boards, so we're very excited about that. Finally, DCA staff is also working with MedBoard staff on enhancement to the Breeze Verify a License main page that allows the consumer to look up licensees. And we're definitely working on trying to make this page more user-friendly. Specifically, we are under development of surveys and focus groups to get feedback on making the main page more user-friendly. The surveys will likely go out early summer, and we'll be convening some focus groups late summer. So we'll definitely be working with your executive director on getting the appropriate stakeholders in those focus groups. Last, on behalf of DCA and the Office of Information Services, that's our IT department at the Department of Consumer Affairs, I want to just say again a special thank you to Medical Board leadership and staff for always being so accessible and responsive to help us when we need to get through some IT matters. We know you're extremely busy, yet you always find time to assist us and work together with us. So our continued appreciation on your partnership. That concludes my update for the department. If there's any questions or any information I can bring back to Director Kadani, I'd be happy to do so.
Well, first, if you could also add our deep appreciation to Ms. Ryan. I've had occasion, maybe all have, she's joined us for dinners and occasion to be in meetings with her, and she brings her experience and clarity to the issue. It's just a true asset to the entire DCA and to this medical board. So we are very appreciative and wish her the best of continued success in her new assignment.
I couldn't agree more.
Colleagues, do you have any comments or questions? Yes.
Oh, no.
It'll be okay.
Oh, that was out loud.
You gotta accentuate the positive.
Even before I started, Ms. Lally, already, no, I do actually. You will be surprised that the breeze is getting better, slowly, very painstakingly slowly, but actually getting better. So that's a true appreciation. I think your IT person, we pounded on him a couple board meetings ago, and I think we felt bad afterwards, but it is important because it's the only way either a consumer can get information or a physician can renew his or her license. I mean, that's very important. So if you could do the same thing on the enforcement side, get the timelines down, get things faster, we truly will appreciate it, because when people ask me, they tell them that they are in the lap of DCA now. They're not they still report, but they're actually your employees.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Yip?
I actually had the same request that we had problem before extracting data, analyzing data. So hopefully Cuba helps the enforcement and the probation unit and the as well as extracting the data and collecting data. So I appreciate if our staff can work with the committee more closely, updating what's going on with the Cuba, so we can feedback to you and make the program much more efficient.
It really is an incredible tool. It's you can manipulate the data so quickly, put it into columns, sort it different ways. So I think it's definitely going to be an asset to this board and all of the programs.
Thank you. Looking to my left, are there additional comments? All right. Are there any comments from the audience on Ms. Lally's report? Seeing none, are there any comments from the telephone?
No, sir, not at this time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your report. Colleagues, we'll now move on to item 11, update, discussion, and possible action on recommendations from the Public Outreach, Education, and Wellness Committee. Dr. Lewis.
Well, most of you were just here an hour ago, so this should be fresh in your mind, but I'll go over it for those few who were not. The Public Outreach, Education, and Wellness Committee met earlier this afternoon, very early. The first agenda item of the committee discussed was an update on the Public Outreach Plan, and after the committee meeting in January, I had the opportunity to work with staff to set due dates, priorities for all the outreach activities. You can find the priority update chart in the committee materials. I think it's under agenda item or tab 4. Of note, the staff has already completed some of the activities, as I discussed today. A message encouraging state employees, vendors, and contractors to check up on their doctor's licenses will appear on all California warrants issued by the State Controller's Office during the period of June 1 to June 30. This will reach approximately almost 440,000 individuals. An article with information about the board and its link to the board website will be included in the CalSTRS and California State Retirees Organization in April. This has already been done. It'll also be out in the spring and summer of 2016 for those groups. The target readership of these groups is 934,000 individuals. The board staff has reached out to numerous other organizations, cities, counties, unions, AARP, and others. The board staff is working with the website tutorial and how to look up in your doctor, which will be completed by the next meeting of the board in July. And also on PSAs, public service announcements, that can be provided to various media organizations and other interested parties, and this should be completed sometime in September. The board's staff also updated the committee on the status of the Public Affairs Strategic Plan activities. That's in tab 5. And lastly, the committee had discussion on possible enhancements to the board's website. We reviewed the recent Consumer Reports survey and the ranking of medical and osteopathic boards websites that was done in 2015, and we discussed possible enhancements to address the issues raised in this survey. And the committee heard recommendations from staff and from others that will be put into place. So that concludes the presentation of that committee. Thank you. Any comments? Board members? None?
Well, I'd like to make a comment. I was at the meeting, and I want to commend you and staff and the committee for this accelerated action that you've taken. You did the presentation in February. You said this is what the committee has set out to do, and then you did it. And we're making movement. We're moving the ball down the court, and it's very exciting. So thank you, Ron, for that, and staff for getting that all together. There's always more work to do, but we're taking that first step, and I think it's very positive. And something to talk about on Wednesday. We're in Sacramento.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Seeing no additional comments from the members, are there any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
No? Okay, now we'll go to 12, update on the Physician Assistant Board. Dr. Bishop.
Thank you very much. The last board meeting was in April 2016. At that time, we had a new member, Senate Pro Temp Kevin De Leon appointed Miriam Valencia, J.D., to the Physician Assistant Board. She replaces Cristina Gomez Vidal. Ms. Valencia from Tujunga is Regional Government Affairs Manager for Outfront Media, formerly CBS Outdoor. She's a member of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, Los Angeles County Business Federation, and Los Angeles World Affairs Council. Her term expires January 1, 2019, and she was warmly welcomed to the board. Under the category of Sunset Review, the Senate Committee on Business, Professions, and Economic Development and Assembly Committee on Business and Professions completed their Sunset Oversight Review of the board on March 9, 2016. In preparation of the oversight hearing, staff of the committees developed a background paper which summarized the contents of the board's Sunset Report. The paper also reviewed the board's prior Sunset Review to determine if we implemented prior committee recommendations. Finally, the paper addressed current Sunset issues. Committee staff identified 10 issues for the Physician's Assistant Board. Out of these 10 issues, committee staff identified 4 issues which were discussed by the board's president, vice president, and executive officer at the hearing. It was noted by committee staff that since its last review, the Physician's Assistant Board has shown a commitment to improve its overall efficiency and effectiveness and has worked cooperatively with the legislature and the committees to bring about necessary changes. It has been recommended by the legislature that the Physician Assistant Board continue to regulate physician assistants. AB 2193 has been introduced, which would extend the sunset date of the PAB for 4 years. Under BREEZE implementation, PAB staff is working with the BREEZE team to update the online version of the physician assistant application. With this update, applicants no longer will be required to submit a paper application when they apply online. This change should be taking place in May. Currently, online applicants must also submit a complete hard copy application. This change will be more efficient and user-friendly for applicants while allowing the PAB to more quickly process applications. The PAB is also working on a BREEZE system change that would allow licensees to change their addresses online. This change should take place in June. This enhancement will make it more convenient for licensees to update their addresses with the board. Licensees will still have the option of submitting address change requests to the board in writing or via our website. Under regulations, there are 4 items I would like to bring to the medical board's attention. First, a regulatory proposal for the board's disciplinary guidelines, uniform standards regarding substance abusing healthcare licensees, was approved by the Office of Administrative Law on April 11, 2016. The regulation will become effective on July 1, 2016. Second, at the board's last meeting, the members raised questions about the current criminal conviction disclosure requirements. Specifically, current concerns were raised regarding whether the $300 trigger for reporting infractions was too low, and that the board might be receiving too many disclosures for convictions, such as minor traffic violations unrelated to the practice of physician assistants. The board voted to request that staff bring text to the next board meeting showing the proposed changes discussed at the meeting for possible initiation of a rulemaking file to amend current regulations. Third, in regards to the board's requirements for approved PA programs, the board voted to create a special subcommittee to look at physician assistant specialty programs and consider applications for approval. Last, the board discussed the now widespread practice of the use of electronic signatures in patient records and other documents utilized in the medical environment. It was recognized that electronic signatures allow for the more efficient use of medical practitioners, thus improving patient care. The board voted to request that staff bring text to the next board meeting showing proposed changes which would include the use of electronic signatures and the delegations of service agreement for possible initiation of rulemaking to file to amend current regulations. And finally, and as always, once again, the PA Board would like to thank the Medical Board, your executive officer, and your staff for your continued support.
Thank you,
That ends
Dr.
my
Bishop.
report.
Are there any questions from the members on the report? All right, seeing none, are there any comments from the public? No comments from the audience? Are there any comments from the phone?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes the agendized items, but it is, I guess, the prerogative of the president, this board, to take up other items. So if we could ask Ms. Yaroslawski to come up, if you don't mind. Yes, it does. So this is, hello, I'll get it started and just say a little bit about Ms. Yaroslawski. One, no, sit down. Come, please, we're family. One, she's served on this board for almost 13 years. Yeah, we did the math. She has served and led virtually every standing committee of this board: licensing, enforcement, public outreach, other external boards. But I would say beyond the service and what the 13 years represent are, one, this focused commitment to this Bureau's mandate, and that is consumer protection. And if you look at where the board was at 13 years ago under different leadership and where we are today, which I think is, knock on wood, a pretty good place, fulfilling our mission, it's because of the dedicated commitment and leadership of Ms. Yaroslawski. So consumers are better off because of what Barbara did on this board. The rules that promulgation, the rules that she led, the policy matters that she did, all of that stuff is because of her leadership. And more equally as important, I would say, for those of us that got to serve with Barbara, she would welcome any new member, take them under their wing, to explain the process. I know you did that with me, and I know you've done that with other members. And sort of get things going and be a source of wise counsel on thorny matters that came before the board. And recognition, so we're all going to say a few things and then you can talk, Barbara. So we're not there yet. But in recognition of your service, and we'll have a chance later on tonight to talk about that as well, the Senator Allen, who could not be here, he missed, his flights were delayed. However, he has sent just an incredible resolution from the Senate honoring your service. And I think after 13 years, you get to read all the whereases, right? So I'm going to do that. So forgive me. And then I would invite my colleagues to say a few words as well. Whereas, there's 4 or 5 whereas clauses. This is the first one. Whereas Barbara Yaroslawski is completing her term on the Medical Board of California, and in recognition of her outstanding achievements during her tenure on the board and her exemplary record in personal and civic leadership, she is deserving of special honors and the highest commendations of the public. And whereas Ms. Yaroslawski has devoted her life to community and civic engagement, particularly in the areas of education, healthcare, and human service delivery to communities in need, and over the years, her civic involvement has included leadership positions with the Saban Free Clinic, formerly known as the Los Angeles Free Clinic, chair of the State Health Professions Education Foundation, and membership on the Los Angeles Commission on Children, Youth, and Families, just to name a few of her many affiliations. And whereas first appointed to the medical board by State Assembly Speaker Herb Wesson on September 24th, 2003, and originally assigned to the board's Division of Medical Quality, Barbara Yaroslawski was reappointed to the board by Assembly Speaker Fabian Nunez in 2007 and Assembly Speaker John Pettis in 2011. And whereas, following her elections as Division Secretary and Vice President in May 2006 and February 2007, respectively, and with the repeal of DMQ in 2008, Barbara Yaroslawski went on to serve as the medical board's vice president and president, having held the latter position from 2009 to 2012. And during her years of service, she also shared her guidance and wisdom as chair of the board's disciplinary panels A and B and its education committee, later known as the Education and Wellness Committee. And whereas, as co-chair of the prescribing task force, which tackled the significant opioid misuse and abuse epidemic, Ms. Yaroslawski was instrumental in drafting the medical board's revised guidelines for prescribing controlled substances for pain and in getting information out to the public and physicians about this serious issue. And she took a leadership role in various other important issues, including pain management, access to care, enforcement, and licensed midwives. And whereas Barbara Yaroslawski also represented the medical board on the Health Professions Education Foundation Board, which makes scholarship and loan repayment programs available to people pursuing a career in the medical professions in the state of California, and she has been a constant champion of consumer protection and a voice of the consumer, always bringing a consumer perspective to the board. And whereas, as one of the longest-serving members of the Medical Board of California, Barbara Yaroslawski has earned the high esteem of her associates and the appreciation of the public, and her knowledge, insight, sound advice, and consumer protection advocacy will be greatly missed by the board's members and staff. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Senator Ben Allen that he takes great pleasure in commending Barbara Yaroslawski for her outstanding leadership that she has provided the Medical Board of California and her exemplary record of achievements in community service, and expresses his sincere best wishes for continued success in the years to come, the resolution number being 339 on May 5th, 2016. That is lovely. Colleagues, if you have any comments to add, Dr. Kraus?
Barbara?
Dr. Kraus?
When I heard you were leaving the board, I wanted to leave too. I knew of you before I accepted appointment to the board, but had not met you. And I knew of your leadership of this board and all of your activities. What I did not know was your persona and your humanity. And your example and your personality and your humanity and your concern for every person who had an issue that was being considered by this board were just so meaningful to me. I hope that all of us can be as compassionate and passionate about what we do for this board as you have been. Thank you.
That's very nice. Yes?
Barbara, the first time I met Barbara was actually I was CMA president, 2009. we had I still remember that it was about corporate bar. We were in the, I think, Assembly or Senate, and I was testifying on behalf of doctors on corporate bar, and that's where I met the medical board president at that time. And then when I got appointed in December 24th, Christmas Eve, 2011, I called Barbara and said, you're the president, what do I do? She said, come over to LA, we'll meet. So actually, because my first board meeting was coming up in January. So I drove and we spent some time. She explained to me how the medical board works and really appreciate it. It's not that easy, especially during holiday time to meet someone who is just trying to meet you. And but more than that, I think what really I appreciated most was that not only your passion for the public safety, consumer safety, but even when you had the worst health problems, you did not miss board meetings. That's not easy to do, so we truly appreciate your dedication.
Thank you. Yes, Michelle.
Well, I've had the chance to know Barbara prior to the board, seeing her on this board, and serving with her since I was fortunate enough to be appointed. And I must say, I know a lot of leaders, but I really don't know too many that have the breadth and depth of knowledge that you have. And I hope that, and I know you will continue on doing the great civic work, community work, and you will continue with the significant contributions that you've given to so many people, as stated by our colleagues here. Thank you.
Jamie.
Oh, Jamie, go ahead.
So I have gotten the opportunity to get to know you personally recently, and it has really been a pleasure. The depth of your knowledge base is incredible. And on our panels, kind of guiding us through the thought process, you know, shepherding us along when we kind of get stuck on issues. It really means a lot to have someone like you there. So you will be sorely missed from a professional and a personal level.
Barbara, I want to thank you for the passion that you bring and have brought over the years, definitely in the 4 years that I've been on the board. And you get us to think differently. And I hope that we can all sort of bring Barbara's thinking to the issues that come before us, and that they don't go away when she's not here. So thank you. And thank you for being a friend, too.
Ron? You guys could still have go to the cafe in Fairfax.
I know. I know. Everybody needs a Jewish mother. Barbara is my Jewish mother. She, I know, it just makes it emotional. She has tried to fatten me up. She brings me pastries, sugar-free. She knows I'm diabetic, so she always tries to take care of me. She's a go-to person, and I feel that the new members of the board have been robbed. I really feel that you didn't really get a chance to know Barbara. But also, we like the same TV shows, and that's more important. We like Blacklist, Person of Interest, and when I first met Barbara for breakfast, we just talked the whole time about our TV shows, and to this day, we have that kind of relationship, and I won't miss you because I will be your forever friend. Thank you.
That's very sweet. Judge?
I would just like to say, I think what others have expressed, for those of us that are new, sometimes life isn't fair, and it's just really unfair that we're coming and you're leaving. And I only hope that there's somebody that
is close to able to step in to fill your shoes to help educate us youngins.
Oh, yes.
Actually, Barbara, you made me feel I'm very young again because I realize a lot of things to learn from you. You're a very, very committed person, very compassionate, passionate. I think the board and the public, we owe it to you, to your service. I have never seen someone who's so committed, so fearless. You speak your mind, 99.9% you're right anyway, and I think really the public will miss you, not just the board. And I'm glad we have more public member now. I wish you stay longer so that they can learn from you, but you can go back to hopefully webcast to learn it.
So, Barb, the words are a little bit hard to find, but I think those that have spoken before, I could take credit for all the benefits that they mentioned. Been on the board for 1 year, and it was very intimidating about being on the board. Am I going to be able to serve? Wanted to be to bring some value to this appointment. But one of the things that helped, in addition to you offering specific things, was just observing the passion, the commitment, the dedication, how seriously you took your position. And so you can feel it, you could see it. And so I said, well, wow. And so I want to thank you for that experience, that exposure, helping me feel that this job is really, really important, and how much really attention and care you provided for your role. Thank you very much.
That really is just a little way to sum up how we feel, Barbara. And we're so blessed that you'll continue to serve the state on the nursing board. But now you can speak.
Give him hell.
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to thank each and every one of you for being part of this community. I don't really think it matters what hat you wear, be it a physician's hat or a public member's hat. You're all consumers, so I have to believe that doctors also get sick and also care about their health care no differently than any of us. And I have to also remember that there, by the grace of God, we were lucky enough to have health care, and we know how to look up our doctors. We know how to be passionate for people that don't have the same luxury and opportunity to know how to get things done. It's one foot in front of the other. It really is. And the medical board has changed. I had a conversation with a gentleman yesterday who was on this board, it seems like before I was, because he was there before me, and he's still alive. To hear that, but to hear from him what this board used to be in his mind, it was a monthly meeting with a party at each member's house, depending on where they lived in the state. I found it very sad that through my tenure, I think what I've seen is there has been a tremendous change in attitude. When we were two separate boards, licensing didn't know what Department of the Quality, BUMQA is what I remember. It's BUMQA, but I don't know why, because we never called it that. But we never knew what was going on in licensing, and licensing never knew what was going on in quality of care. So when there were licensing problems, we never knew, and when there were quality of care issues, they never knew. So we've had fabulous staff. We've been very lucky. We've had some changes that have been made. It has nothing to do with other than at the moment it wasn't the right fit. I don't think anyone that has ever been in this job as executive director cared any less than anyone else. But I think that the opportunity that we all bring to the table to say something, you see something, you say something. That's our national motto in life, and it has to be the national motto on this board. That when you see that something's not working and not right, you have every opportunity to open your mouth and say something. As you all know, I'm not a big fan of rearranging chairs on the deck of that Titanic, and I quite often feel that that's kind of what position we've been put in. I just wish you all the best. I'm around. I still, I'm not going to the cemetery yet. We never know, but I'm always available. Just take your job seriously. What you do is really, really important. It's not only important for you personally, what's more important is for the people you'll never see, for the voices you'll never hear from, but you're making a difference for the quality of life of everybody that lives in the state of California, and I thank you. We're a leader in this country, and I hear the questions about the compact coming and coming and coming. Until they have the minimum requirements as the same as the state of California, be very careful what you accept. Because what we have here in place in California is the gold standard. It really is the gold standard. And don't let anyone change that. I mean, you have every right, your vote counts, and you all count. Oh, and my God. Yeah, he can. I've been married to him longer than I've been on the board. So, thank you. I mean, and I have to tell you, your executive director, you've never met a finer person that cares more about everything and everybody. The time she spends with every other board in the state that don't pay her a penny for her time, her energy, or her thought process to make sure it works. It's not just to make sure the medical board works, but that every entity within the state that she can offer help and advice to and make the system work. She's been a godsend, and you should only use your opportunity to engage with Kim and make sure that she, don't ever shut her up, because she's always right. She is. Yeah, she is. So thank you.
Yes, I'll hand you the resolution.
So for any of you that run for public office, the last thing you want to do is read resolution.
Read the whole thing.
Are you ready for public office?
No.
No, it's really very nice, David. It was very nice.
I thought we deserved.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
I know, well.
It's
You have to smile.
It was in this hotel, I was with a nurse. Seriously, after being in the hospital. I mean, this hotel has, I have fond memories, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Bishop remembers.
Are there any comments from the public? See, our sister state agency, the Attorney General's office.
I just wanted to let
Please
the
take a
record
seat.
reflect how much you will be missed, Mr. Oslovsky. I've never been in HB without having you as part of this board. I joined HB in 2005, and all of my staff was very, very saddened to hear that you were leaving. But I'm confident that you planted so many seeds here in this board that you will live on, and you will be very proud of what you left behind. And they are big shoes to fill, but you've set such a great example, and we just know that you care so much about the patients, the consumers, the doctors, and every staff member involved in making it. And you always reminded us that we're a team, and that the truth is really important to get down to. And we always knew we had to really just respect your take on everything.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Castro. Are there additional comments from the public?
Yes.
Yes, please.
For the benefit of the new members, my name is Julie D'Angelo Felmuth. I'm going to pull a Dr. Lewis. I'm the administrative director of the Center for Public Interest Law at the University of San Diego School of Law. And I have been hanging around this board for 30 years. And I've never been around a member who has been here as long as Barbara, or who has served with such passion and compassion. You, as that resolution recounts, you have been a leader on just about every issue that has come before this board in the past 13 years. But the issue on which you have excelled is ensuring quality health care in underserved areas. And you remaining board members, don't let that drop. Don't, in Barbara's honor and in Barbara's memory, and you're not dead, I know that. Please be as passionate, try to be as half as passionate about that issue as she has been for 13 years, because you have personally led the crusade to bring health care to underserved communities, and that's such an important part of this board's mission. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Lovely comments. Okay, the board stands in recess until 9 o'clock tomorrow. We'll see you later on, and we're going to do a group photo.
Okay, good,
So,
good, good, good.
board stands in recess till tomorrow at 9.
Thank you for all your help.
You're very welcome. Thank you so